I want to welcome the two comedians, entertainers, performers that I've had dinner with the most in the last, say, 7-8 years since I relocated to L.A. Conan O'Brien and David Spade. Both.
That's a high honor. Thank you.
Yeah. It was a lot of it was tedious, I'll be honest. I'm going to do the backpedaling that Conan does so well. I really, really like you, but, you know, it got a little boring.
There were there were gaps in the energy. Sometimes the energy would drop, and you're very restless, David.
Me? I thought you were going to say Dana.
No, you get up a lot. Dana's gotten a lot better. Dana used to be very hard to talk to. Kevin Nealon used to be hard to talk to, but I've been working on both of them, and I actually, for the first time about a month ago, made eye contact with Kevin Nealon.
No.
And it was a huge... this is something I've been working on since 1988.
Big step forward.
Yeah,
Wow.
big step forward. David, you and I don't hang as much.
No, but that's okay.
But
you're
I
fun.
put you guys together.
I say nice things about you all the time, which is rare.
Our last dinner together, I think,
Our
was
last dinner
Ted
was fun.
Sarandos. What that guy runs
Yep.
something. Rob, who else? Us three, and that was it, right?
It was us three, and Ted Sarandos joined us.
Yes.
He
kept pitching me shows. I'm like, Ted, I'm trying to eat.
Just past the edamame, my God.
God,
and
damn it!
He kept
Let
saying,
it go.
Dana, whatever you want. He, at one point, held up one of those giant checks. And it was already signed, and he said, just fill in the amount. And Dana was like, I'm eating.
Like a publisher's clearinghouse
Yeah,
check.
it was-
Lovitz.
I'm John Lovitz.
Oh.
And then we're at that dinner, and who do
Right.
we
Oh,
run
that's
into?
right.
Yes, we run into Lovitz, and I love it because Lovitz always does, no matter who he's with. My favorite thing is he was once standing with this very attractive woman, and I was talking to him, and in front of the woman, he looked at her and then looked at me and went, jealous?
Jealous? Yes.
Jealous is a top 5.
It's a top 5 Lovitz,
Yeah,
but he can be
shtick.
standing with a hobo. He can be standing with a shoeless
Right.
hobo, and he often is. And I'll be like, oh, hey, John, how are you? And he'll go, it's my friend. He's homeless. And I'll say, oh, well, that's too bad, John. I'm sorry for... And he'll look at the friend and then look at me and go, jealous? Like,
Yeah.
no,
He-
I'm really not jealous. No.
His big move is he gets new sunglasses or has cool sunglasses, and that sets you up. Nice sunglasses. They come down. And he
Sometimes
says,
he goes, get to know
jealous?
me.
Get to know me. He wanted
Shit.
that to be his after The Liar. He was desperate for a catchphrase, and he really was. He really.
Of
and
course.
I know
Course.
I know the catchphrase. Yeah.
One of them was he really wanted to say, "So you should get to know me, get to know me," and would say, "It's okay." But
It was.
and then he had another one. Do you remember it, Dana?
Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye. But
So
that was a good
stupid.
one. That was a pretty
Oh.
good one. The whole sketch was built around the guy saying, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
It's really a nothing sketch just to keep getting to that.
Yes, and
I loved.
he wanted another catchphrase because I think he saw merchandise and he was thinking ahead and he didn't care what sketch you pitched him as long as it got to what's the catchphrase? Does it get to know me or goodbye everybody goodbye?
By the way, Conan, have you been in those read-throughs where
funny.
someone's jamming a catchphrase down your gullet and it's not clicking for 13 pages and everyone's dead silent? They keep
Yes,
doing
yeah. One of my favorite. I have lots of Saturday Night Live memories, and some are the ones that people. You know, most people think, oh, my God, you were there when U2 played. You were there when, iconic rock bands playing.
Neil Young, Springsteen,
Neil
Tom
Young.
Petty.
And I've told this to Neil Young. It was the best live performance I ever saw on Saturday Night Live.
Keep on rocking in the free world.
Keep on rocking in the free world. And
Yep.
I've never seen anything like it. It was, it's very hard Lauren always used to say that TV is the worst way to experience rock music. It's just
TV
is the worst way to experience rock and roll. But
don't tell our musical
The second
guests.
worst way is radio. There's all important formats.
the third worst way is in live in an intimate setting. No, Lauren, that's the best.
And if
That's
you
a
have
good
a
one.
can with a string and it's to a neighbor, it's like really, really bad.
Yeah, but so anyway, he said, but that was. I don't know what Neil Young did, but he transfixed everybody. It was great.
Well,
but
Neil Young Garage Band. That's
I
what
got
pops.
Ashley
He was-
Simpson anyway.
Oh, you were there for that.
No, I think I was gone, but I couldn't think. We did have a lot of good bands. I mean, we had Nirvana, we had Pearl Jam.
But people always expect that would be the memory that you would remember, that you would think of most.
Right.
Eric Clapton, and I would think,
Right.
yeah, because when you're watching them rehearse. You can stand in 8H, which I know looks big on TV, but it's
Right.
much smaller.
That's even cooler.
And when you're standing there at rehearsal and you're watching the greatest musicians of the 20th century perform right there, it's quite stunning. It's quite amazing. But I still think read-throughs, those are the memories that are with me the most because they contain PTSD. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they're the ones
the good and the bad.
the good and the bad. And so if you have a sketch that's killing at read through, you're delighted. But I think they say negative impulses affect you more than positive ones.
It's like gambling.
Yeah. And also, exactly. And also, we all know you don't see the people that are laughing in the crowd. You notice the people that aren't laughing. And you guys have never had that, but trust me, it's no fun to have an audience member not laugh. Yeah, let me explain it to you. I'll draw it for you.
Sitting there, Conan, for 45 minutes, say you're not reading anything, and you know it's coming. Some are killing, some are bombing. It's just very hard to control your energy and your emotions because all of a sudden Lauren does, and in walks Conan, and then you got to be on. It's very nerve-wracking.
See, I was not a performer. I was just a writer, so I did not.
You were in some
I was
cameos.
in tiny things, but mostly you guys were the ones that had to be on. So the first thing you have to do when you're a writer, and one of the things that's so nerve-wracking about read-through, you've been up for 2 days, you haven't had a shower, you're completely whacked out. You've written this sketch and you desperately want it to work. The first thing you have to do is get to the performers that are in the sketch and tell them how to do the thing you want them to do. You know, you have to tell them, obviously I'm not going to tell you if it's a church lady, I don't have to say boo to you, but
Be sarcastic.
But
Glenn Close, you have to say, hey, I'm going to be with 43 other writers that are going to run up to you right now and say how to do their sketch.
Yeah, exactly. But you also have to get to David and say, David, in this one, you're Cockney, but you're also kind of sarcastic. Or Dana, I've got to get to Dana and I've got to tell him really quickly, Dana, the idea in this is that you get on an elevator with Sting and this is kind of how you're doing it. It's that kind of, I recognize you.
Good,
and then,
okay. Well, how was Harvard? Then I just walk away.
Exactly. No, you were very nice. Some people were quite
Can I just say for a second that the time before read through it's like Grand Central Station. People are running around.
Yeah.
People are trying to get the scripts together. And especially with a host, Conan, you writing for a host who's got 55 things they have to read. So you have just maybe 25 seconds to give them kind of a hint sometimes.
Yeah. And you have to get to them, and it's intimidating because sometimes they are intimidating people. It's George Steinbrenner. You know, it's a guy who fires people for a living, and he's hosting the show that week, and you have to run up and say, you're a ballerina, and in what you do, and he just is like, get the hell out of my way.
By the way, what about in read through? Then they look at you and you're across the table shaking your head going, you blew it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then
They just look down.
The memories that haunt me are if you've got a sketch that all relies on one turn of phrase, and that's the moment where everyone's going to start laughing, and then everything else is funny because of that moment.
Right.
It's like you've lined up 800 dominoes. And what happens
over.
is you hit the first one, and it falls and it hits the second one, but then that one misses the third. That's the sketch. So you're 3 pages in and someone says, really? Because this restaurant sells octopus. That's supposed to be the thing that sets, and there's no laugh, and you know that everything else
rides on that
isn't going to work. You just lit the firecracker that's supposed to set off every other firecracker and every other missile, and it goes.
Yeah,
and then it phases out.
17 pages. You kind of overwrote it.
17, the worst possible.
You look ahead, and Lauren's reading the stage direction, and it's silent. And then it's like, they all then march into the mines. They go downstairs. He repeats, this is an octopus store.
It?
And then he starts to read faster and faster.
Reads really fast and swallows the words,
And
he checks out.
Everyone in the room hates you. Everybody hates you because you've consigned them to 17 minutes of an octopus sketch, and the fuse didn't light in the first page, and you're screwed. That's what I remember more than anything.
Sweating.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to be on the show long enough that toward the last couple of seasons, I never wanted to peek at read-through, because one time Al Franken said to me, hey, you peeked at read-through. I did it all out at read-through, and I never got back to that. So then if you know it's on, if it's George Senior or Churchley, then you can kind of cruise into it, not worry about it.
We'll get it there.
We'll get
Don't
it
you
there.
worry.
Bonnie Turner will do something.
Yeah, that reminds me of something David told me once that I never forgot, which is I was there for David's audition for Saturday Night Live. And I remember that night very clearly because I was sitting at a table with Lauren and we were watching different people come up. And apparently, David, you were given advice by Dennis Miller, which to me sounds like terrible advice. But Dennis, just before you went on, said, just remember, you don't want to... you don't want to
too hard.
You don't want to kill too hard at your audition. And I was because
it throws a red flag.
Because and I was thinking, no, kill at your audition.
Of course.
Of course. You
kill a bit for sure. Yeah.
But what does that mean? Don't kill. I would want to.
You know what it was? It was Spudley, because he was like my favorite comic, and then he was with Brillstein, and they helped me get on this young comedian special, which Marcy Klein saw or whatever. By the way, I hired a truck to back up. I thought it'd be funny. Now it's not. There's beeping. So Marcy, everyone's there, I guess. And then Dennis comes up backstage. How you doing, Spud? And I go, I don't know, obviously shitting my pants. He goes, don't worry, man. You don't want to kill too hard. It's a red flag, some polished road hack. And I go, right. So don't do good. And then he walks away and I'm like, and they're like, and 3, 2. And so I go on. I'm like, am I not supposed to, So I don't do that great. I think we all remember it was what the lesson was, I think, is they're going to look at your writing. You don't even really, I didn't realize this for a long time until I watched comics and liked them, that I could tell if someone had game when I go, oh, I like the way that joke is structured. I like the words in that one. I like whatever. And it was a little offbeat. I didn't see it coming, or it was a bit of a surprise. Even if it wouldn't work, I go, that guy's good or something. And I think that's what he meant and put it in the worst possible way. But it's like, don't kill. And I'm like, I know I want to kill. That's all you knew that would work. You do well, and then you get hired.
I think if someone comes in, this may be different than killing or not killing, but completely formed. I think if things are a little fragmented and not fully formed, then Lauren and the staff go, which piece of clay we can play with. We'll develop it, as opposed to being completely locked into your thing.
Right. It gives them a place to go. No, I see what Dennis was trying to say. Yeah. But if I was going out to audition and the last thing I heard was "don't kill too hard," I'd be confused.
Sabotage or something.
Also, I always.
But it wasn't.
Dennis and I. Subsequently, every time I bump into Dennis or talk to him, he's delightful. But back in the 80s, I think he just had that kind of cha-cha way of going at people.
Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah, but it's almost, and so I think for some reason, I remember I was quiet at Saturday Night Live for a long time. Mm-hmm. I'd be funny around the writers, and then when the performers would come around, I'd get real quiet, or if Lauren's there, I'd just listen, and I didn't shoot my mouth off. But I remembered, and for some reason, maybe, I don't know, Dennis, I just feel like there was a period of time where he just thought, I don't know about this Conesy guy, So I remembered I remembered one time I said something, and we were over by the craft service table that leads into 8H. Where the food is, and I'm standing there by the food, and I'm 23, 24-year-old string bean, and Dennis said something, and I went, yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. I just said something, and he took it the wrong way. He thought that I had taken, I had dissed him some way, and I'll never forget what he said. He went, oh, so Conesy takes a shot at Den Den. And I'm like, what? And he went,
he's Betty Davis now.
Yeah, I know. Conesy took a shot at Den Den.
It's going to be a rough. Fasten your seatbelt.
Fasten your seatbelt. Going to be a bumpy ride for Coco in the next couple of months with Den Den on his ass. And I just thought, no. I didn't. Well, okay. The guns have been drawn. We'll see how this plays out.
Okay, see it. Okay, corral. All right. Hey, Spudleys, don't go out as Dickie Pryor. No one expects Sam Kennison. Land the couple and get out. Okay, that's all it's about. Don't kill too hard because they'll resent you. I'm going to a theater.
Hey,
he's always dressed to go to a Broadway show.
D material. Spud, go out there and eat it. Now, I like that I explained to the guy from Harvard what Dennis meant. I feel bad about that now.
The
Conan,
guy from Harvard, is that Conan?
Yeah,
I love that's what I'm reduced to this day.
I thought it was Yale. Conan, did you notice in read-throughs, because I went to community college, San Francisco State, and once in a while it'd be a Jack Handy sketch or something, and I would mispronounce a word, and I would hear little pockets, Yale, Brown, Cornell, Harvard, just little giggles. Probably that didn't happen, but I definitely felt my lack of education. Like, I can talk to you about, the Third Reich or the, French Revolution, and it does seem like people who are highly educated have a bigger palate.
No, I think that's in your head. I really do think that's in your head.
Well, I think I'm as smart as them.
He never talks to me about that, Conan. He talks to me about the dumb stuff so I can understand it.
That's right. Well, you call it the Third Rich. You didn't understand.
It's one of those things, Conan, that I probably perceived once and didn't happen again. But.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is if I could change one thing about. If I could change one thing, it would be that nobody knew where I went to college, because you guys know me. I don't think that's where my sense of humor comes from. I think I'm, and I think there were times when people were like, oh, well, Harvard guy.
Christ sakes.
Ivy
League.
Yeah, Harvard guy over here. And you'd think, well, okay, it's not Hogwarts. It's not a magical place. It's a school. And I met some really smart people there. I also met some pretty dumb people there.
Well, I think it's because you were president of the National Lampoon.
Harvard Lampoon, yeah.
Harvard National Lampoon. And you were elected 2 years in a row. I saw some notes about that. So I think it wasn't just the Harvard. It was that embedded it.
Yeah, I was.
But I don't consider you wearing your intellect on your sleeve at all.
No, I try to. I do my best to hide it. It's something.
What about that sweatshirt that said "I'm the best of the best"? Was that a gift?
I thought that was ironic. And I think
what about that sweatshirt that said "Got Mensa" that you used to wear?
I took a Mensa test, by the way, because my stepdad thought I was so smart, and I got the results. He goes, "You know what? This is stupid." He crumpled it up. I'm like, oh.
I think the mistake I made is when I showed up at Saturday Night Live, I was wearing the mortarboard on your head that you wear at graduation, and I walked around with a tassel and a diploma.
What the fuck's a mortarboard?
That's the thing that you wear on your head at graduation.
The flat thing?
Yes. I didn't know it's called a mortarboard.
Jesus Christ.
Guys, you had a semester at Arizona State Community College.
Fucking the mortarboard diaries. You did go to Hogwarts.
David, did you go to college at all, Mr. Spade?
You know what, Dana? I have 14 credits in anthropology. Yeah, I went to Scottsdale Community, which is basically
the Tigers.
High School plus, and the Artichokes. And then I went to Arizona State. By the way, Scottsdale was like my warm-up for ASU, and I go, I'll just cruise through this. And then I was like, wait, this is hard. Now I got to go to a fucking ASU after this? This is supposed to be the layup. And then I got to ASU, and I was in a fraternity, and I have to say, and all the fraternity guys get mad at me, but I just don't think fraternities are a good idea in general. It was,
no, they're evil.
It was 90% hazing and pouring paprika on my head and spray painting my body.
Also, David, you're a fragile flower.
Fragile.
I think of them
Dandelion.
making you do a keg stand and drink 6 quarts of vodka, and I think you would die immediately. I think you would die the second they had you do anything. I can't believe
they
you
would
survived
use
that.
you as a prop to beat up the captain of the football team.
I know that Dana and Conan know I'm a fragile dandelion, and then I go, well, at least it's within my tight friend group. And then I realize, like, I come off the world like some fucking hard-ass athlete. But the world just kind of knows I am. I sit funny on Ellen. They're like right away going, what's happening?
On your haunches.
So, I sit on my knees.
Yeah, you sit on your knees at the restaurant we were at. You were sitting on your knees a lot, and you'd get up and you'd walk around,
stretch out. Yeah,
you were on a lot. You were doing a lot of cocaine at the restaurant.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah,
I had cocaine mixed with the second booster.
I did not do well with cocaine.
Everyone.
I did it once.
Dana, that's too bad.
Then
what
I
happened?
burst into tears like a half hour later. Then I did it the second time, drove to the comedy club and said, "What? They all hate me. All the other everyone hates me." And I drove back home. That was so I only did it twice.
Druggie.
Yeah, I look at both of you, and I'm going to include myself in this. I'm going to look at all three of us because I never did it, and I always just knew I am not the personality type that needs to be artificially revved up.
Yeah, that you need to calm down.
I saw a doctor. I mean, you guys saw me at SNL, and I was always grinding my hands together, practically starting a fire with my knuckles.
And the Conan show, you would, or late night, you would ride a bicycle
like
to
this.
get your
and I would grind my hands together and grind my teeth and shatter them because I was so uptight. And the last thing in the world, no one's ever said, you know what you need, man? You need some cocaine. No one's ever said that to me. And
Conan, just to for sure interrupt you. Sorry, we're new at this, but when I was in community college, this comedian gave me a few bumps. I'm using street lingo right now.
Cocaine line.
Yeah. He bumped me up a little bit, a little sniffy jiffy, a little power flower, and so I'd do it, and then I liked it. I never did it before stage, but I liked it, and then I thought he did it was cool, and I was a little bit of a Count Gacula there for a while, and then I slowed down in college. But when I got to SNL, the only time I should be doing it because I had to stay up all night, I never did it once, and I thought, I always regret that. No, I'm kidding. But I always thought, wouldn't that be the time to be like, because I'd be like, yawn. I would I'd make myself get up at 9:30 just because I thought it was so weird to stay up all night every night. I wasn't used to it. And I'm like, this is so weird to be in New York. And I wanted some semblance of anything normal. And it was very hard to go in and I don't think people at home know. They always hear you write, Tuesday night all night. But you're allowed to go in at noon and write. It just, no one really does it.
No,
and I would write.
That is a completely messed up thing. And I've interviewed, current cast members, and I'll say, do you really still, that thing where you come in on Tuesday and everyone stays up until Wednesday night, you don't still do that, do you? And they'll say, yeah, it's kind of still there. And there are all these rumors that it started in the 70s, and obviously
it hasn't changed at all.
And people were doing cocaine. Now, the group that I came in with, Greg Daniels and Bob Odenkirk and Robert Smigel, we were all getting our cholesterol checked. We weren't guys that were, hey, how do we score something?
No, we weren't partying either.
None of us were, and clearly there are famous cast members that did, but for the most part, it was I remember going into Tom Davis's office once, and at 1:00 in the afternoon, and he had a bottle. A hilarious guy and wonderfully sweet guy. Yeah. But he had a bottle of red wine on his desk, and he was drinking red wine at 1:00 in the afternoon. And I remember being scandalized. And red wine is nothing. And I was like, what?
It was like Mad Men, if you know the reference. Just let's have a little Tom Collins or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't.
10 a.m.
We were not those people, but we still stayed up for whatever it was, 35 hours in a row, because that was ingrained. It had been institutionalized in 75.
That meant you care. That means you're working hard.
Schneider loved it. Schneider would stay up and he'd wear his boxers, and I'd go, "That's enough."
But let me ask you a question, Conan. Or would you have a story there, David? Sorry.
No, just that we would write, and I would go home because I wanted to. And Conan, I don't think people know. Also, when you're writing on a legal pad, you can't. The girls were like madmen. They were typing up 4 girls in a room. Remember Claire and everyone? They'd type up and a sketch. And I didn't know how to write sketch format, so I'd write it out with, this guy says this, and do it as close as I could, and put a little stage direction. And then I'd go home, and then I'd finish it or something, and I'd have to drive a cab back to hand it in. Then I cab back home to sleep 2 hours, then come back. It was such a weird process, but I couldn't email stuff in. That would have been fucking great. And then they would do it for me, and sometimes they would do it a little wrong, because you want to go over it one more time. You'd have to drive in to go over it again before it went in the packet for read through. And sometimes a little teensy mistake like that would, like you said, screw everything up.
Let me ask Conan a question. I just want, because you were there as a writer. To me, as a cast member going through, I remember on Tuesday early evening, the writers are hanging out in the writer's room. A lot of food's being ordered. Yeah. And a lot of talk about sports, anything but the task at hand.
Anything but. You're right.
And then there's this hours and hours of just subconscious work, I guess, and pressure. Because sometimes I would leave as a baby at 3 a.m. And you guys would still be there leaning back in your chairs, picking on some, tacos or whatever. And then I find out later they got done. But I mean... What did you think about that 6 hours Tuesday evening that was
those are the dark times. I would get very, very
like I got nothing's happening.
I got nothing, and I shouldn't be doing this for a living, and I'm seriously. I would have some kind of, I would say at least on any second. Not every week, every Tuesday night that I was writing, but I'd say at least 50% of them I'd have a profound collapse, mental collapse, because what happens is you hear people, everyone else has a good idea, and you hear Franken laughing, and you hear big gales of laughter coming from other rooms, and I remember very much, sometimes thinking, this isn't what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then you snap out of it. But a lot of waiting for the commissary to open so you could get breakfast, and it would open at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And that's when you could go and get, a bagel with some bacon on it and drink a cup of coffee. It was really,
But Conan, do you ever say in your head, like I used to think, I don't think of it then, but what are the chances you're going to think of a bit every week, a sketch that everyone will talk about? It's just such an impossibility. Sometimes I would jump on with someone that had a good idea and they needed help, and I'll write it with you just to get my name on something because I wanted to feel useful there, not get fired. But I would blank out. I'd also hear Smigel and Sandler cracking up in the office next to mine. It was connected to mine. I'd be like, fuck, I'm so jealous. They're killing it.
Sandler was a guy who most people, when they show up, are somewhat nervous. And I remember, David, you like walking office to office and saying, "Hey guys, what are you guys working on?" And I remembered very well Chris Rock, because he showed up when I was there, and when he was very quiet.
He's a very sweet guy.
Very sweet, very quiet, and not the Chris Rock that
on stage
people see on stage, who is the most confident man in the world. He's kind of asking, I don't know, what are you guys working on? Yeah, I don't really know. And that was the energy people had. Sandler, the second he showed up, was just so happy and enthusiastic about everything. And he'd be like, "Oh, let's get milkshakes. Yeah." And he would be doing bits and just laughing his ass off. And I thought he's so comfortable.
He's
immediately.
Kind of confident about it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was so confident that I think he was one of those guys who was like, "I'm going to be a big star, and let's get started. This is going to be fun."
It's almost like it wasn't even a possibility that he wouldn't be, because everything was clicking so fast. Like people, Smigel, Downey, me, you guys, we'd all laugh at what he's doing. And it was so different and off what I would think about in my own head that I was like, wow, that's cool. He's got this whole persona. And then they throw it into Iraqi Pete, or they throw it into some bit, you know, and you'd see pieces of it. And then you go, shit, they're buying it. They're buying it more and more. And he just go, I'm going to write an update. I'm going to write a song. I'm going to write another update, and just keep going. And they were working.
But he did have a period where there was, I think he was inevitable and really confident, but he did have a period where he was, not sure if I remember it correctly, but I think at one point Lorne will kind of feel someone out. Dana, Adam, what do you think that's going to do? Because when Adam first came out with it didn't always kill.
Right.
And I remember one time in the hallway near the makeup room, I had an office over there on 8H, and I came out in the hallway, and he was leaning back against this was not normal Adam. He looked emotional and almost like he was going to cry.
Yeah.
Because his sketch had gotten cut. And as I remember, I gave him a pep talk. I never forgot that. But he did. He was 23 when he got the show. But
also remember, I don't think people at the network weren't. I don't think they weren't thrilled. And that's another thing. Yeah, what happens is that stuff. There's revisionist history. You know what happens. You know later on. Now everybody loves Norm, but they really didn't. You know, he got fired, and Adam, there were people at the network that really weren't supportive of Adam.
Didn't get him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Lorne was probably get some pressure, like, what's with the Adam guy? And you think, it's just so funny how later on, to anyone listening right now, everything seems inevitable.
Yeah.
Everything seems... You know, it's the way people read history. They read history and they think, well, of course, Franklin Roosevelt became president because he's Franklin Roosevelt. And of course, he was president like 4 times. No, it's not inevitable. It can go a million different ways. And at the time, there are a lot of people, who are later on, I mean, I remember Farley, I was there when he was waiting outside Lorne's office to get his interview, and Lorne had him waiting for like 2 days. And I was just talking to Farley and joking, doing bits with him. And at one point I took him around 8H, and I was pretending that I was a big shot and saying like, and so there'd be a crane that was already going up, and I'd be like, Joe, get that crane up, and the crane would be going up anyway. And I was goofing around with Farley,
he would laugh,
and he was laughing so hard. He was such a immediately great, sweet guy, but I think when he first came on, he was nervous, and I remembered it really turning around when I think Jim Downey wrote the Chippendale sketch, and suddenly it's, he's...
With Patrick Swayze.
And it's this...
That was one of the top ever, knowing right off the bat, like standing 10 feet away going, this is like one for the books.
Yeah. This is, and you knew just, okay, this is... I want to be on the floor when that thing happens because that's going to be a tsunami.
To be a big guy like Chris was at that point, and he was so athletic and so physical, and to see a guy his weight move like that, and so it just blew the roof off. Back to Misunderstanding Sandler for a second. I remember Sandy Warnick, his manager at the time, and he said, he's such a good-looking kid. I don't know why he does all that goofy stuff. So you're right.
He did have the girls right away.
But you know what's interesting about Adam? Adam said this to me once.
I mean, they liked him.
Yes.
One of the things that fascinated me.
He pulled me aside. He said, "Conan, I do you wee."
That means so I like you. Let's get lunch.
It's so funny because he lives right up the street, and he comes by my house, and he'll shout outside the house, Coney, and
he's got the best yell voice too.
But I guess one of the things that he said this to me, and it really fascinated me. I asked him like who his idol was at the time, and I thought it was going to be a comedy person. And he looked at me and he said, James Caan. And I was like, James Caan? Like James Caan, the
Sonny
from the
and Godfather.
Yeah. And then I saw it, which is Adam has that. He can channel that. He has that. And from his dramatic roles, he can kill it. He can lock eyes with somebody. He can sell it. He has that energy.
He has a tough guy energy too.
He has a tough guy energy, and
definitely.
He's doing all this stuff that I can kind of see what Sandy Wernick's talking about, which is he probably thought, here's this good-looking kid with real acting chops. Mm-hmm. And why is he dressed like a baby going, and it's, but Adam knew what he was doing.
I remember Adam when he was he'd not done a movie yet. He was starting to do well in the show. And I remember him saying, yeah, I love Smigel. I'm going to put him in all my movies. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking, he already, wow, all your movies,
100%
how many?
True.
Oh, about 70. I'm like, what?
But Conan, you were saying when you see him in the hallway standing there, we've all been there where you go, you're newer and everything hasn't clicked for him yet. And he's probably in his head going, what am I doing? Am I any good? Is this shit too weird?
What, everybody,
am I as good as these guys?
Everybody has that. I think about this sometimes with Saturday Night Live today, which is I'm always grateful that things happen to me when they happen to me. When you think about it, our staff, especially when I first showed up, the staff we were working with was really small. By today's standards, it was when I first showed up. It's there's and I've seen group pictures of the staff, and it's Dana, Phil, Kevin, Jan, Nora, Victoria.
Or something.
There's like 7 of you, and John Lovitz, and you think it really does look like the cast of Gilligan's Island, and that was the entire cast. And I think in a way, everybody was in almost everything because they had to be.
Yeah, you were constantly in the show.
And now I am always, hearing about, there's, Cecily Strong, Bowen Yang. So you'd be like, great, I got it. But then you realize there's 35 other people. And that with that many staff, I think it would be hard. I think must be more challenging for the writers. And can you imagine being on that staff now? And thinking, how do I get on the air? And also, they have guest stars now. We would do that once in a blue moon, but
Dan Aykroyd came in and did Bob Dole, and that was like a big thing.
I would have been livid as a cast member. Just think, Conan, when we were there, we were sort of overlapping with Dana and Dennis and Lovitz, and when we all came in, and it was pretty full then. And also, Franken was available. There's a lot of people that do stuff, and it's hard to, I don't even know what the fuck.
Well, no, it's hard. It's harder. It's hard to pop, and it's like I think if you're playing on a basketball game and there's 35 benches and 12 players on each bench, your chances of getting in the game are I would think be much tougher.
And you can't beat down the innate fear and terror and uncomfortableness of doing that show unless you get on air. It's very hard to get. Because how do you try not to try? And it took me 80 shows, I think, to get out of my head.
Right, and I think that's why. And clearly, they keep finding really great, talented people. But I would think it would be so much harder if you haven't found your foothold right away. If you haven't found your niche right away, I would imagine it being. I would feel for a cast member now because I think, man, that's a challenge to pop.
You have to have a clear niche. Like if we have I was sort of sarcastic, Chris was this, Adam was doing this. So at least you have that. Then you sort of go, oh, I'm not just a one-trick pony. Anyway, long story short, I am. But at the time, I wasn't.
So was Johnny Carson.
I was like, I can do other stuff. And then they go, okay, what? And I go, I don't know. But maybe for the writers it might be easier because you have more people to cast, but it's also hard in a new world to say, can you can Dana play a girl? No, you can't do that. Or if you're Asian, if you're Korean, are you allowed to play Japanese? Like there's a new world where things are offensive. And on a show like SNL, are you still allowed to be goofy and do impressions? And they must have one more.
There's stuff I was involved in that could never be on today. I don't even want to mention it, but it was the sketch. At one point, we had Candice Bergen on, and she kind of talked about how it was, maybe a little not politically correct. But do you guys think that, like Saturday Night Live today, it's easy to get into grumpy old man-itis, like, oh, we did it this way? Because I remember running into Sid Caesar in an airport, and I could tell he was sort of bitter that it's not, SNL's not that good. We did it better. Is art always just built for its time? I mean, my father just hated the Beatles and then loved them later. It's just kind of an interesting idea of like, is art always Andy Warhol in 1962 or whatever? Is Saturday Night Live is exactly where it's supposed to be culturally, or do you have any issues with it?
I made a promise to myself a long time ago.
Judging
that I made a promise that there are things I'm going to get and things I'm not going to get, but that be happy. I'm very happy that I got to do what I got to do at the time that I got to do it. Mm-hmm. And I make a real effort. There are some things I don't understand, or there'll be something that people really love that doesn't click with me. But I think for the most part, if something's getting a lot of likes, if something's getting a lot of traction online, and I look it up and it's something from a recent Saturday Night Live, I'll look it up and it's Chris Redd doing Kanye, and I'll be like, oh, that's really funny. That is, if something's getting traction, it's usually for a reason. And yes, there's a lot that can be different about the show now, but I do very much try and remind myself that it's not worse or better. It's just different. It's just completely different
Steve
time.
Higgins told me that, I don't know if he just said that Lorne wrote the Constitution. This is his words. And then it sort of evolves. It's a living document in a sense. Mm-hmm. And so today, it is what it is. But you're right. I think funny is still funny.
It's so funny though. And now the thing now that I totally was not happening when I was there was this business of writers dating movie stars and
where were
marrying
you?
them. And I just think about, wouldn't that be really funny if I can picture me and Greg Daniels and Robert Smigel in 1989, if
Candy Bergen.
if I was walking around and
it's amazing.
I had Madonna on my arm, and I was like, guys, please let me in the restaurant. Where, and people were like, Conan, this way, Madonna, and it's just like, it's so funny. And I'm picturing,
she's bragging about a cold opening you wrote.
Yeah, exactly. And nerdy me and nerdy Greg Daniels, and he's got Melanie Griffith on his arm, and he's like, please, move aside. I remember, I think it was for the movie Sex, Lies, and Videotape. I think Andie MacDowell was on the show.
Ooh.
And she's,
I heard this one. Yeah.
She's so gorgeous. And it was my birthday. And I didn't even know how she knew, but I was back in my office grinding away, and all of a sudden the door opened, and she walked in with a
grinding
cake
away.
She walked in with a cake with candles on it and sang "Happy Birthday" and gave me a hug, and my soul left my body and never came back. I'm soulless. I've never had a soul in my body since that moment.
We didn't do drugs. We didn't have women. We just were there all night.
Also, that's my racy story, is that Andie MacDowell very sweetly blew out the birthday candles on my cake, and wasn't that a nice memory? I wasn't sleeping with anyone famous. I wasn't being hounded by the paparazzi. So that's a world. That's a way that Saturday Night Live has changed, where the third assistant director on the show is going out with Megan Thee
But
Stallion.
we had our work in front of us,
Megan
and then
Thee
we were
Stallion,
behind the
of all people.
facade. But it seems to me that fame is talent now. Like you can be critical or judgmental. This person's advocating fame or procuring fame, but it's its own talent and it's its own power. I don't know. But that would make. I mean, I don't want to judge it. It just seems like it's.
I think you just did. Doodaloo.
Yeah. You know, by the new changes,
observing
they
it.
can miss a lot of shows. Like Conan, you weren't allowed to miss shows. No one's allowed to miss anything.
Yeah.
This is a grumpy old man thing for sure. But I was jealous that I found out, you know, people would take huge chunks of time off if they felt like it. They just
or they could shoot a movie or something. Well, that was one of the things that's kind of mind-boggling now is the show starts in October of 75, and immediately Chevy Chase becomes the biggest star in America. And like a year later, he says, well, it's either continue doing Saturday Night Live or make a movie. I guess I got to go make this movie, so goodbye Saturday Night Live. And you think, no, that's not what you... Now it's a different world. Now it's go make your movie and then come back. You can do both.
And do commercials. It's incredible.
Exactly. So I think there was clearly a different... I almost think the rules were different, or people didn't...
I couldn't do a Super Bowl commercial when I was 2-3 years in. They just said no. I didn't even know they could, but that was part of my deal.
Were you offered one, or you asked to do a Super Bowl commercial, and all the
I had some good
companies
ideas for
said
them.
no?
I had a good idea.
Your agent called
It'd be
around.
funny if I was in one.
You kept...
No, I got a Diet Pepsi, and it was good money. Obviously, I was going to say, I didn't know what you made when you started. I think I got $900 a week to write, and the Pepsi commercial I think was $250,000, and then it trickled back down to me. They say that's not what we do or something, and I'm like,
that's not what we do.
You got a mouse
we
in your
don't
pocket?
make money for working 6 hours.
It was a real crusher because I wasn't getting on much. I didn't even know if I had a future there, and I thought, wow, at least I'll get one click off this. And luckily, I hung in there. And I mean, luckily, I stayed and worked and ultimately made some money. But that was a real.
We
kick
didn't
in
do
the
it. I was
nard
offered a
sack.
giant Taco Bell thing right as I came off
I was offered
SNL.
a giant taco once.
So, and I asked Conan, should I do the Taco Bell commercial? I told him the number, and he said, absolutely not. I'll never forget that.
Conan killed it.
Yeah, I had that kind of power back then.
Don't you love it when people say, this is what you said? I had a guy do stuff I said in 1979. and I
It's
remember
never
you
right.
said that you were going there. And then I remember, I was like, 45 years ago, you get to decide what I said?
You know what's so funny? What happens once you become a known person is that other people add you into stories that you weren't in the first place because it makes it a better story.
Funny.
So I went back to I went back to a reunion once at my high school. And this guy there was like, "Hey, Conan, remember, back in the back,
I remember when you,
And he was like, we had some crazy times. And I was like, I was thinking, I don't even know who this guy is. And then he said, hey, remember the time you and I broke into Stephen's Market? We broke into Stephen's Market and we stole all those beers, but the cops showed up, so we went out the back. And you went left and I went right and I got nabbed. And you took the beers, you fucker. But I didn't squeal on you. And you know what? I didn't drink until I was like 28. I've never committed a crime in my life. I didn't break into a liquor store.
That story's on heavy rotation,
but the thing
too.
is, what happens after a while is you get tired saying no. You did that with someone else, but it's been a lot of years and a lot of beers since then, and then
years and beers.
And so you added
my autobiography.
You added me in, and I started to think, gee, I don't know. It's made me read history differently. Like when I read a history book now, and they say, Lincoln. I remember a firsthand account. I remember Lincoln once. I said to him, something, and he said, "What's that?" And he knocked me right on my ass. And then I stood up and I knocked him on his ass. And he said, "You're a better man than I." And I think, I don't think any of that happened. I think you just added Abraham Lincoln to your story.
I was at a restaurant early 1980s. I saw the guy doing that to Jimmy Stewart. And I could tell that Jimmy Stewart was getting really impatient. And remember that time, in high school, we did this, call it same old thing. And Stewart stood up and said, I don't understand a fucking word you're saying.
Is that true?
No, I just did that so I could get to Stewart swearing.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that was a good one. A good scenario, though.
I wanted to believe that was true.
I wanted to believe it. I set you up.
Yeah.
By the way, Conan was nice to me when I got there.
Nice?
Conan, I have to make sure I tell everybody. No, Conan, I'm sure you can be a prick. I don't see it.
Conan's a sensitive person.
I was there, and Conan said, as a hazing, this was right before Conan dyed his hair red. He said, go out and get me some hair dye. And you, Sandler, and Schneider. And by the way, Conan, did you ever... this is a weird question. Does Jack Handy ever collaborate with the other writers, or he always wrote it by himself?
I think he maybe collaborated somewhat, but Jack Handy was stunning because he could go off.
Talk about nice guys. What a
nice
genius.
Guy, but also, I always envied him because he didn't need anybody else, and he would go in his room, nicest guy, and then you'd hear like typing. And then he'd come out and he'd say, well, good night, everybody. And we'd say, all right, sucker, we're going to be here for another 9 hours. And the next morning, his sketch is the funniest thing. His sketches killed, I would say, 95% of the time. And
it was an unreal slugging percentage. I would be baffled because I'm already just a newer writer, learning how to write sketches, trying not to read through. And then knowing the level, when I look back of all you guys who was so much quality there, and then seeing like a Jack Handy sketch, which just is another move, not like better or worse, just like so smart and twisty. And you go, what is he talking about? And he was like a mad scientist. He'd go in there and no one would bump with it. You're not going to bump with the buggy sketch.
He had this idea once. And to me, it was always the simplicity of the idea that would make me think, why didn't I think of that? But his ideas were so elegant and so different. I actually got to be in this sketch. I'm there in the background, and if you blink, you'll miss me. But it's James Bond's, James Bond always makes his way to the doctor, Dr. Knows.
James, it's a lair.
It's a lair. He always gets to the lair and shows up. And the lair is always the most amazing thing you've ever seen. And the guy is like, welcome, Mr. Bond. Well, this is James Bond shows up at the lair, but the lair still has 3 months to go before they're done working on it.
Crews there,
And so there's a lot of construction going on. And so Dr. No is really pissed because he's like, Mr. Bond, we're not done yet. And he was like, well, so sorry, Blofeld, or whatever the evil guy's name is. So sorry, Blofeld. Sorry to crash your party. And he goes, well, let me show you. Now, Mr. Bond, if you were to be here 4 months from now, I'd have led you over to this. This is going to be a tank with sharks. Now, right now, they're still setting the forms. The cement's coming in a week, and everything was. And over here, there's going to be a laser, and Bond's giving him shit, and I thought, oh my God, of course these layers have to be built, and Bond is always showing up 6 months after it's been finished, and it looks fantastic.
It's working perfectly.
Of course, he would show up while they're halfway through. And it was great. It was great.
You guys obviously, like his runners that were big were Frozen Caveman Lawyer with Phil.
Yeah.
Toots is the cat. One of the weirder ones I remember, maybe you remember it, but it was something about people talking to aliens, and they were high up on this thing, and somehow the aliens only wanted to talk about box office receipts of current movies. And it went on and on.
The
one that I had with Christopher Walken that I believe it was Jack Handy wrote, is we're landing on Earth, and every time the landing gear would come down, it would like kill a farmer or something. So we would come out and we'd be like, we come in peace, and they'd be like, killers. And then Walken would always go, let's get out of here. And then we'd go back and then we would land again. It would kill a farmer. We'd come out. Yeah, let's get out of here.
Couldn't catch a
then
break.
Suddenly Chris and I are in this little tight wooden structure like a spacecraft. His face is an inch from my face, just crying with laughter from let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Now. Okay. That's all I got.
My question would be, and and you guys could answer this better than I could, which is why I'm asking you, which hosts, when you were there, really made an impression on you, either positively or negatively? Because it's such a strange thing that someone's introduced to your life, they show up on Monday night, and by the time you get to the show party on Saturday, you've been through this intense experience with them, and then they get spit out. And with hosts like, with a host like an Alec Baldwin or a Tom Hanks or a Christopher Walken, they're coming back in a year, but so often you never see that person again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Steve Guttenberg, I remember he had a good show, but I don't think he ever came back. I do think that the athletes, Michael Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, were big, and the older movie stars, for me, this is back in first season, I think. It was a Jack Handy sketch. Robert Mitchum and I were in a sketch together, and neither of us knew what the sketch was about. We were beekeepers or something, so... and Charlton Heston. I mean, those were the more surreal ones.
Well, also, I mean, to me, and this was true when I was doing the late night show, anytime I got to interact with someone who had been on TV or the movies when I was a kid, that blew my mind. So if,
totally,
I remember in the hallway chatting with Mickey Rooney. And Mickey Rooney, there was a garment rack there, that you can hang. And Mickey Rooney was very short, and he jumped up while he was talking to me and grabbed the bars of the garment rack and started doing chin-ups as he was talking to me, and then swinging kind of like a monkey. And and he's like, and I remember telling my dad, I hung out today with Mickey Rooney, and my dad couldn't process it because my dad was born in 1929. So
and Mickey was huge when he was 10 then.
Biggest star in the world.
So when when my dad's 11, the biggest name in the world is Mickey Rooney.
Yes.
And there's no bigger star in the world,
as he liked telling us.
So when I call my dad and I was hanging out with them, but then I had to tell him, Mickey, I got to go. We got to start the show. And so I blew him off. He couldn't comprehend. Why would Mickey Rooney talk to you? And
I had the same thing, but go ahead, finish that.
No. It's me throwing it to you guys, saying you guys got to meet and work with these people more closely than I did. I was a writer.
Conan, I have one too, where you were there. One of my rock stars was of my life was Bowie, and then he was music with Tin Machine, and I told Dana, but you were there during my first receptionist was a sketch I couldn't get on, and then we sent it to Bowie to be himself and come in, and then I don't know who he is, whatever the hilarious jokes are, and then we sent it to him at a Boston hotel, and then Marcy goes, call David Bowie, he's looking for you. I go, call David Bowie.
Right.
Those kind of things. I think it was on a yellow piece of paper, and it was in my box when I walked into work, and you pull it out. It says, David Bowie, here's his fake name, the NBC, that stuff you get when you get messages. Right. And I was so sick, nervous, and I called him, and he picked up, gave the fake name, and then he picked up, and then he's like, oh, this is the funniest sketch. I'd love to be in it. And I go, thanks. He goes, but can I play your part?
Oh.
And I go, oh, the receptionist? He goes, that's the funny part. Well, I mean, me playing myself is boring. I mean, you could play me, and I'll play your part. And I go, I don't think I can do that. It was so weird.
Oh, so you had to say no.
And then he was weird about it. And then he didn't like it. He goes, all right, well, I'll see you at the show.
Wow.
And I go, and he hung up. And then, like you were saying just about that week, first I get to meet an idol. I don't think I knew him. Maybe I knew him. I met him once or twice before that. And then I come back, and now here are the good nights. I see him, and I know there was some friction.
Yeah.
Now I met Bowie, and there's friction. Some stormy past. So then when he leaves Good Nights, he goes, hey, I didn't really get what was going on. That's like a running sketch. And, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, that's nice that he said that. I'm glad.
Yes.
I'm glad. Because my experiences with him were that he was such a gentleman. And so, I get that he didn't know that it was a runner, that you can't call Dana, and say, I'll do George Bush,
I'll do Garth. Can I do
you
Garth
be the guy who comes into the room with the sandwich.
Right. And it was one of those lessons of like, first of all, don't give a host nothing. There was things, they'd say, what does the host do in this? And, you got to give them something to do. They won't pick the sketch if it's all you and they don't do anything, that kind of thing. So that was a classic example. He just goes, that's not fun for me. And I got it. It was all selfish. I wanted him to be my sketch and I wanted to. You
have regret with things you say and it would bother you for a while. And then later on you realize it was nothing. Because when Sting was on the show, we were coming down the elevator at the end of the show, and I was hyped up because it was Sting, and we came out, and there were all the people waiting at the bottom of the elevator, like a big mob. Yeah. So I put my arm around Sting and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Sting." And then he grabbed me and kind of went, with anger. So for years, I thought he was mad at me, until I ran into him later. It would go through my head sometime. The only other funny moment, well, go ahead, comment on that. Did you ever have your moment?
Was he thinking he didn't want to bring it up?
It was
like
just,
he's getting enough
obnoxious. I think it was obnoxious. You get nervous around famous people and you can say or do stupid things. Conan?
For sure.
Yeah, I definitely. But the thing is, that's in your head, and you're talking about it all these years later, and Sting forgot about it seconds after it happened. And I've had, after all those years of doing the late night shows,
regret.
I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey, I owe you an apology," and then they'll apologize, and they'll say, I wasn't really prepared, or I had a little too much to drink before I came on, and I know it was like, and they'll say like, I know you were really mad, and
I know you're so mad about that.
I don't have any memory of it, and I don't think. No, I'm not mad at you, and I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I've had that.
So, and then they're really relieved. They're like, oh my God, but then also probably possibly insulted. Like
they carried it around in pain for decades, and you're like, never happened.
The story meant nothing to you.
All that suffering. Well, we've had therapy now, so we know that we're wounded clowns in some level.
Sure.
Conan's not.
I'm not buying that. I chose that moment to look out the window.
Yeah, you really did.
I'm looking at Sandler's home right now. Beautiful.
Hey, beep, beep.
It's
always fun.
If you're a sensitive instrument, which is a good thing to be if you're a performer, an actor, or a comedian, and then it infiltrates your normal life and you process people. But everyone's
okay. Well, here's a thing that I think you could both relate to, which is people. Their assumption would be that, and if we make fun of somebody or we tell a joke at someone's expense, that we don't really care how they feel. Mm-hmm. And the truth is...
Or we don't like
those people. And the truth is, yes, there are people you can tell a joke about who you really despise, who are awful people, or impressions you can do of someone. But for the most part, and I think this includes both of you, I think most people would be surprised at how much we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. And that when you hear back from somebody, like I know... There was pressure on you, Dana, because you did such a great Johnny Carson impression, and people would think like, "Oh, you're killing with your Johnny Carson impression because it was so perfect." Mm-hmm. But you're hyper worried the whole time that it might upset Johnny or feel unflattering to him, right?
Well, it did, and it felt bad because when I did it and when I sat in that character. And it's been reinforced by Tom Hanks and Martin Short on this podcast. Like, that was the most comfortable I'd been doing a sketch on that show. I didn't care if it got laughs. I was so comfortable being the charming Johnny. So the gentleman joins us for what you folks are home or watching a television. Right. So he was fine for a while, and I would still be on his highlight reel, and I would see Johnny. And then there was one that offended him, and then I never went on the show the last 2 years. I knew that I was out, and it was that was
shadow ban.
That was really, really unfortunate. I didn't like that, and someone told me that he would walk down the hall at NBC in Burbank and say, "They're making fun of me now. It's time to go." Just yell it out. So,
well, also
felt bad about that.
I felt I heard this was from the great Rick Ludwin, terrific executive who
NBC.
NBC executive who loved loved SNL, loved late night. That was what he was in charge of, and
Very nice.
really good guy, and also the person who pretty much was responsible for keeping Seinfeld on the air when it was in trouble in its first season or two. And so, lovely guy who passed away about 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And anyway, I bring him up because he used to also work the Carson show, and he remembers having to go and tell Johnny, go into Johnny's dressing room and tell him, Johnny, I talked to you about, well, there's going to be a sketch at Saturday Night Live, and I do need to give you a heads up that, and that he would have to tell him, and that Johnny would say, well, I don't particularly think it's funny, but that's their right. That's their right to do that. And then he. It's so funny because you forget, because we think of him as just being on top of the world from 1962 to what is it, 1991. He's just on top of the world.
Yeah.
And 92. What we forget is that he's constantly, like any comedian or any star.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's constantly afraid and on alert that they're coming after me now. And so I read this interview with Johnny Carson from 1980, and it was in Rolling Stone magazine, and he's talking about, the interviewer keeps saying, well, what do you think of Belushi, and what do you think of Aykroyd, and keeps asking about Saturday Night Live, and what did you think of Animal House, and what did you think of Chevy, and Johnny, you realize, has been hearing from a lot of young people or whatever that's what's the cool thing now. And he was the cool thing from 62 to up to 75. And not that he still wasn't great and revered, but I thought, wait, in 1980, he's worried about, he's taken a couple of shots at SNL, and how he thinks that the humor really, he thinks it's a kind of obnoxious, and he doesn't quite see it, and it's not his favorite thing. And then you realize that, okay, then 8 years later or 10 years later, the show is
directly
kind of having fun at his expense. I mean, I didn't think of it. I just always thought of at that time, Johnny Carson is so secure. What does he care? You know what I mean? And it's just funny and silly. And your impression was, I thought affectionate. I thought you loved Johnny.
I love
Dana,
being in
and
that.
I thought it was affectionate, but
Yeah.
I do think that in show business.
But I know that there was a sketch. I think there was a sketch that was written
that made him a little.
Someone wrote a sketch where
senile.
where Johnny's trying to be cool to keep up with Arsenio, and the roughest part was Phil was playing the sidekick, Ed McMahon, and he was saying things like, he literally was chuckling and going, ha, 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 peaked in the 70s.
Old reference, lost on younger viewers.
Old reference, lost on younger viewers.
Old reference, lost on younger viewers. And you think, wow, if I was, if there was a hot new sketch show now, and there was a guy playing Conan, and I'm just completely out of it, and I'm not up on what's happening now, and I'm, and I'm old because I've been on TV too long. It would hurt my.
I wouldn't even come in the next day.
It would really hurt my feelings, and probably be deserved on some level. So it's you can't have it both ways.
But I'm interested in this idea that every performer becomes a caricature of themselves, and you can look at someone sometime and just think, is that person, or is that a celebrity impressionist doing that person? And it happens to everyone, and you have to keep a sense of humor about it. Well, you're so self-deprecating. You're always ahead of the.
Well, no, but I think that it's one of the things the three of us have a pretty good vantage point on, which is we've been at all the different stages. And then what I always wanted to be at the stage I'm at now is be gracious about and kind of intrigued and curious about the young people coming up, because I'm I'm 5 seconds away from someone ripping me a new asshole for being too old. So just try and be gracious about all of it.
Well, I remember Sammy Davis Jr. on television out of the blue going, I'm not going to be competitive with Michael Jackson anymore. You know? And he was like almost 60.
Oh, Sammy Davis.
Yeah.
But I had a good time with Conan.
Thank you, Conan.
You've been a really great guest.
Guys, I love talking to you. I look forward to us getting a meal.
Yes.
That would be really nice.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And we don't need Sarandos this time. We don't need a Netflix guy.
Oh, he was fine, but he was just padding.
Yeah, we move on now. We move on. It's just the three of us next time. That's it.
No, we had a blast, but we could do with us, and we'll fight to see who pays. It won't be me. Okay, thanks, Conan.
Okay, I do love you guys, and thank you for having me on. It's nice to have.
Let's have dinner.
Appreciate it, bud.
Goodbye. No. Please. Bill, you just go out there and you say your truth and you go with it.
They know who you are in the comedy clubs. Nobody knows who you are here.
Is that what he told you?
That sounds like him.
Yeah, it was just, no, but it's great advice. Say hello. Say you're happy to be here.
Be nice.
Right. Don't go right into the bits. Got it.
You're a gruff, no-nonsense comedian.
They have no idea who you are, so have a good show.
That's sort of it, right?
I'm selling out all over the world.
No, I came on as a host, not a cast member, so I didn't.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to you guys didn't happen to me. He was great.
No,
you came on at the very end as the host, as the winner.
So, Bill.
Dana, what is it about you that makes you so great?
Yeah, what's it about you that makes you great, Dana? Because I'm curious.
That's a great question, Bill. I have no fucking clue. I'm just trying to survive on the planet. What's on your mind today? Because you're a man of a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
That's kind of a myth. What is on my mind today? I would love a cappuccino.
Oh yeah.
And just sit there and watch everybody else driving around going nuts. You know, like yesterday, I actually had
We
time.
can get you one. Where are you?
I actually had time yesterday with a buddy of mine. We went to this cigar shop on Larchmont.
Mm-hmm.
And it was everything I loved about cigars. It was just a bunch of knucklehead old guys sitting out in front of this thing, breaking each other's balls, just laughing. And one point where I'm listening to all their stories and, you know, about their families and sports and shit. I'm just watching all these people driving by in traffic. And I don't know. That was just one of those moments like, yeah, this is actually living.
Yeah.
That's like real life, as opposed to I got to write a new joke. I got to go here. I got to call this guy. I got to do this.
I got to go on two famous guys' podcasts so they can show off the background of their multi-layered mansions. Yep. I see what you guys are doing. You're building a brand.
Picasso. Yeah.
I'm at a Ramada Inn. I hope you could tell.
No, is that what it is? That looks like a mansion to me.
How you landed that stand-up on SNL, because I watched it again today because I like to do homework. David just sort of phones it in.
Monologue. Yep.
That was like threading the needle. What would you call that? I mean, you'd vetted that in the clubs. You knew where all the laughs were, or how did that feel going out there with a crowd that maybe didn't know you that well, with that whole white women and all that?
I just always look at it like I'm not trying to be. I'm not being malicious. So, and then it just because somebody heard it maliciously, that doesn't mean just because you hear it doesn't mean that's how I meant it. And if I tell you that's not how I meant it, like you don't get to overrule my own thoughts. Like it gets to the point of like, yeah, I know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And then also what is going on social media in cities like LA and New York is not even all of LA. It's not real. It's just sort of this small group of people running around like Chicken Little. Like somebody asked me recently, said, what's the biggest thing threatening comedy? I was like, there's nothing threatening comedy.
Well, that's good.
Like there's some asteroid coming here with some,
comedy
hairy-legged feminist on it. It's just like, I'm always astounded with how not funny the people that are telling people what's funny and isn't. Like it goes back to like the when I watch sports, the amount of just out of shape fat fucks questioning
that have opinions.
Like, what was he doing on that play? He should have ran. It's like, when was the last time you ever ran other than to a fucking buffet? So
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
I think that's just part of anything that you do. I mean, presidents have to listen to comedians making fun of them, oversimplifying world events. I do that all the time. Like, hey, why don't you just do this? You know, no education.
Go to Saudi
whatsoever.
Arabia, you tell the guy you need oil, and you get the oil.
And tell everybody to chill out.
You smack them around. If you got to smack them around, you smack them around.
I'll
You're
be
head of
selling
state.
my me for president T-shirts after my set.
Yeah, every president goes in when they win the first day, and they get in a room, and someone goes, "Forget your whole campaign. Forget everything. We're starting from scratch right now. This is how it really works." And he's like, "Oh, okay." What?
There was a kind of a sensitivity to Biden, just from someone who does impressions initially, right? The first 3 months, you start to go into it, depending where you were, and the audience get quiet. They wouldn't boo. They just get quiet. Because I think it was sort of, he was supposed to be the grandfather of the country and calm us all down. You know, this was like in April of 2021.
I don't think that's who he was. I think people wanted anybody but Trump. So they picked a warmonger with dementia.
Right. And if you ding the demented war guy, if you ding him, you're making the Orange Hitler happy. So you don't want to make the Orange Hitler happy, so you can't ding the demented guy. It's a vice.
I think I think both sides can agree. Our latest two representations have been the worst representations. So.
Can a brother get a JFK? Can we get a 45-year-old horny guy who can really speak,
Go
talk,
back
and
to the
walk?
horny guys.
Well, I mean, just somebody with some, something. But
did David really just apply chapstick during this podcast? Did that just happen?
No, Bill. It's called Viagra, and I put it on my lips, and it travels down to my rock hard boner.
Sorry.
Well, that's. Do you ever hang out with someone and they're telling a story and they compliment their dick? They go, "So I'm with this girl, right? And I've got this huge hard on." Like, says who?
That's what I was trying to do.
Too much information. I don't want to know about it.
I will say, though, I always thought a rager was funny.
Raging boner.
And I got a raging hard.
Just a rager, yeah. I got a rager.
And you're just at a restaurant with a guy. I got a rager on. You're
yeah, it just comes
Rager's
up.
funny to me because no logical decision is going to make. Once it's a rager, it's driving the ship.
It's kind of angry. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I had a raging rod like 24/7, and I remember just staring at girls in class just going, I can't think of school. I can't think of anything. Like, it's wrong. I shouldn't have this. It's unfair. Because the girls couldn't give a fat fuck about me. So they're just like studying and looking. I'm like, how are you looking at literature? That was one of my classes.
And what was your nickname again, David?
There was a couple.
School?
There was shrimp cocktail.
Shrimp cocktail.
There was Sprout, which was horrible because it was based on the Jolly Green Giant and his little green sprout. Remember that?
And that was
fucker?
the name of him?
Oh,
okay.
Remember that? That was brutal.
Were you big in high school, Bill? I mean, were you a small guy or were you average?
I was a face in the crowd. I wasn't cool. I wasn't a nerd. I was just there.
A face in the crowd. Were you? Did you do any athletics at all?
I got a D in math in 5th grade, and my dad pulled everybody out of sports because I think he just didn't want to go because he was antisocial. And then I remember after high school, he said to me, he goes, "How come you never played football?" I was like, "I thought you didn't want me to." He goes, "No," which is complete horse shit because I did play football. I did play football, and all he screamed and yelled about how I was knocking what little brains I had out of my head. He kind of saw CTE before anybody else, I guess. So there was that. But I played like baseball. I played like pond hockey and stuff. I played a lot of sports, but not organized. So like we used to have this great game every Friday just a tackle football game in the outfield of some little baseball field, minor league baseball field there for the kids. And we would just tell the stories and make everybody laugh on Monday, I remember. And then word kind of got out about the game. And then the more popular athletes started playing. And then like all of my regular friends just like tapped out and they stopped going because the competition got too high, I think. And it was only like me and like 2 other guys stuck around to get our asses kicked. But it was more like that. But I was definitely a, I wasn't a nerd, but I wasn't part of the cool kids. I was right in the middle.
Nerd is at least some, moniker. Just being a face in the crowd is almost worse. Just you're part of nothing.
Oh yeah, if I didn't do what I did for a living, everyone would have forgot about me.
By now, they would have forgot long ago. Yeah.
What was that? What was that orange kid's name?
That's
right.
Patrick.
Total ginger.
I have a poster of me and I have this picture of me, Bill Burr, Dana, and Norm. Do you remember that night?
Mm-hmm.
I have that right on my wall.
Oh,
right
I sent that to you, right?
I have one
I sent
too.
both of you guys.
Yeah, I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah. And Dana's is in the garage, but mine's up. And that was a fun night. I think it was my night where I got to pick people to go on at the Comedy Store, just like a stupid night. Like, do you want to have your own night? You pay your friends nothing, and then you keep a little scratch from the door. I'm like, that sounds fun. So we went, and Norm. I can't even remember anything about that night with Norm. Do you remember anything? That was a fun show, though.
I do. I remember that was like a make-a-wish for me because it was like three of my most favorite comedians and guys from SNL on that show. And I was just sitting there going, I can't believe these guys even know who I am or would want me to come down there. And I remember Norm was, as always, holding court.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the most quiet, slowly, like it. Usually, if somebody's holding court, they're loud and boisterous, and he just is sort of like really still.
Us.
And he would just get that look on his face, and you're like, "Oh,
I hope this isn't coming."
Hope this isn't aimed at me.
No, he took up a lot of space. He was sneakily a pretty big guy, and he was laying back on the couch, like laying way back backstage.
He was kind of big.
The Comedy Store, and you're right. It's so laissez-faire, like, hey, there's this guy, shot his wife, right? And you just lean in because usually it's something's kind of brilliant or bizarre. I mean, he had an irresistible rhythm. Sweet Norm. We do Norm because we miss Norm. We don't feel
No, everyone knows that. We think Norm's hysterical. Even if we say something he did that's crazy, it's still out of good thoughts. It's
I like when you guys do those other stories because it humanizes him. Because it's like, oh, he could be a dick. Everybody at some point is a dick to their friend.
Sure.
Well,
I was mad at him during COVID because he kept saying, David, let's go to dinner. And then I go, all right, how about Friday? He goes, what? I go, how about Friday? He goes, what about COVID? I go, well, Norm, just come to my house then. You sit 20 feet away from me. No, we can't. And then he doesn't drive. Everything about him was a total fucking
Norm
hassle.
was a racketeer. He was he was a flim-flam man. He would but I would just start laughing every time he would say something that was a couch message toward me. Like he would point out the worst part of my act, the most climbed, helpless, kind of begging for a laugh, stupid impression. And you go, yeah, you should do more of that guy. That's really funny. And I knew he was fucking with me. So, but it just, he was a charming,
there's a lot of gold in there.
Yeah, it's really good when you do Richard Nixon, right? 'Cause a lot of people remember him, right? Yeah, more of Richard Nixon. That'll make your act.
I did Dennis Miller's show in the old days, Bill. You were just a little toddler.
Dennis is another brilliant
guy.
Yeah.
And Dennis Miller had a few iterations of his show, and it was like a, talk show. So I don't even remember. Me and Norm were on there, and I see this clip a lot. So Norm's on. I'm the second guest, so I guess I was already on, or we were on together. And he's telling Dennis this long story about I guess, I thought it was boner pills or something that can't get boners. And he goes, and then they always have these commercials like, hey, do you need a rod? Do you have to get your dick hard? And I'm like, why are they sending it to me? This commercial's for guys like Spade over here. But actually it was, and I was gay in the story. So at the end he says that, and Dennis goes, oh, we're both like, you went all that way just to end with fucking ripping me, and then it got a huge laugh when he ripped me, and then they went to a commercial. I go, God damn, Norm. Yeah, but it's kind of fun to be a part of
That was just Norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that clip.
I think, first of all, I might have introduced Dana to Bill backstage at the store once. I think Dana and I came in.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, Bill Burr's here. You want to meet him? And we went back and said hi to you, and you or Bill were great. And then Bill and I used to also leave each other, which I kind of miss, those text voice messages. And when you're going to do that with Bill, they're the fucking funniest. Just no matter what he's saying, it's just funny to me. So we would rag on different people. We won't say who, but we'd rag on people, and it was hysterical. So then
that was our COVID. That was how we got through COVID. We just left each other voicemail, and then in the end, we would always say, "We got to go get dinner sometime," because we never did.
Allowed.
And then
we weren't allowed, but I could handle dinner with you, and we could drag Dana if we want.
I'm a homebody, but I will come out. We had all had dinner together. Who else was there? It was Kyle Dunnigan and Nikki Glazer and
at Coy.
Bill. Yeah.
I wasn't at that one.
Oh, you were at the one, just three of us later.
Did you go to any, Bill? Did we go to dinner?
Yeah, in the back room.
Yeah, the back room. Like Lovitz or somebody else was there. I can't remember who.
Hello.
We were technically breaking the law, or I think we went. It was like a speakeasy back there. It was a special COVID room. We had our masks off. Yeah. Yeah.
I had dinner with Lovitz the other night.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Was it? Did you just run into him, or was it planned?
No. No, it was totally planned, and he just shit on me the entire time we were hanging out. It was awesome.
Funny.
So, Bill, how are you? Are you making like $1 billion?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Here's something that could help your act.
Oh yeah, he's always got a lot of act ideas.
It's not ideas. He's just trashing me.
Oh, he's just trashing you. He tells me, you know what you should do, and this would help everything, and then he gives me a horrible idea. I'm looking at this, by the way. Dana, you know the Wilbur Theater in Boston, which I think I've played. You've played.
I played it. I shot a Goofy special there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Now, Bill, do you know what I'm about to say? I don't want to give Bill any compliments. I promised myself I wouldn't.
It's a compliment alert.
Yeah. He has done 19 shows in a row there. 19 in a row.
John Mulaney did 20.
Oh, he did? Just to fuck you?
I'm a has-been.
Oh, what a joke.
Mulaney. Oh, wow. So that throwdown, that's the gauntlet. 21's the new standard. It's like being the world champ.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I'm from Massachusetts. Yeah. Mulaney's from Chicago. So what he did was not only one more, it was also more impressive. So you can take that compliment, Danny. You can send it right over to John Mulaney.
John Mulaney's so big.
I don't know.
Now that he played Nebraska. They set up a stage in the corner of the state. And the whole state stood up, and they had loudspeakers. So
he's doing 50 states, one state each, the whole state.
But who's the motherfucker who sold out Fenway Park? Who the fuck was that? That's 35,000 seats.
How do you even do it? What do you do when you go there? Do you have any local bits? Like, I was over here on Apollo Boulevard, and everyone's like, fuck yeah, guy.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, talking about drinking.
There was a lot of, yeah.
So that was just
about
2 months ago, right? Yeah, you sold out Fenway Park.
Yeah, that was...
Was it during a game and you came out at halftime? Or what happened? Or was it just for
Was
you?
it a bucket ticket?
It was it was kind of perfect. It was like a perfect night for baseball, and it turned out to be for comedy too. And everybody came out for the comedy, and it was like playing a giant comedy club. I can't explain it. It was.
I can't imagine.
I didn't have to speed up or slow down or adjust. It just was me telling jokes and them laughing. And every once in a while, I would just sort of look in the crowd, and just at the back of it, I just, above home plate, it said Fenway Park. I still can't believe.
Where were you? Where was the stage? Second base or pitcher's mound? Where was the little stage they had you in?
It was out. No, it was out in the center field.
Center field. Okay.
Yeah. Center field. So how they seat it is everybody sits on the outfield. They keep the infield. Yeah, that makes you feel better, Dana. Oh, it's not 35,000 seats.
Oh yeah, that's probably about 8
I just got to get a pin. I want to cross that out.
And then the stands were filled up. There was a few scattered singles left or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a product of the internet. How that ended up happening, because the internet destroyed the music industry, and I just feel like it created a vacuum and something else had to fill it. And I think the way
interesting.
Well, just the way comedians are, because once people hear our jokes, we have to come up with something new again. You can't tell the same joke again. Everybody on the internet's just like, oh my God, I saw that clip a week ago, blah, blah, blah. So like the way that we have to keep going, and the way people on the internet just want to keep seeing something new, what's stuff, the new latest thing, it just sort of meshed, because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It wasn't like this. It was Steve Martin was playing big arenas when I grew up, and maybe the Blues Brothers did a couple, and I can't even think of just comics that were maybe George Carlin.
It was Carlin, Cosby.
Yeah, Cosby.
Steve for a while. Robin was
a
really
couple.
big.
Oh,
yeah, I
maybe
don't
Robin.
know.
Yep.
I don't know if Robin played stadiums, but
I'm thinking like 3,000.
Dice Clay.
like
Dice
big-
Clay was a guy.
Yeah, Dice got really big. Yeah.
Dice was the first guy to do the arenas
Yep.
before Steve Martin, and then Dane Cook started
yes.
the new thing where he kind of showed people how to brand themselves on social media and be directly linked with your fans and build a fan base. I still think you got to be at some level compelling. You can't just go on the internet and just be like, hey, you know, I want some fans.
Yeah.
But we talked to a lot of people on this podcast who have leaped to Madison Square Garden, like John Mulaney, and Bert Kreischer is doing 10,000 seaters. He's huge in Germany and Australia. It's just this new thing of podcasting and Netflix specials. It seems like
Segura.
so many people not doing like 3,000 seat theaters like you'd think they'd be doing, or 6,000 seat theaters, but up to sheds and mini arenas. So anyway, it's fascinating. You're one of them.
You're one of them.
Oh yeah, and I'm fucking.
You're one of only like 100 that do it.
I know, and I'm saving the money too because I know this is a real estate bubble. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
I'm saving
But
the money.
I don't see people getting tired of laughing though. That's another thing too. It's not like I think the thing that probably takes you out is if you stop going to the comedy clubs as a performer, because then you start aging in dog years. And there's something about going down there, not like you have to pretend like you're young. You still act your age, but just being around young, you just sort of absorb how to still be a 54-year-old guy like me, but be relevant. Where I remember, when I was coming up, with the Holy Grail was not anybody going to Madison Square Garden. It was getting a sitcom that made it to syndication.
Yeah,
and I remember
100%.
seeing.
No.
I saw a good 3 or 4 of those guys come out of those 8-year, 9-year, 7-year runs on a show and go back to a comedy club with their act from 7 years ago and just,
I feel attacked.
Eat a dick.
That was me.
Well, one
That
of them
was
was
me.
definitely David Spade. Like, Dana, did I ever tell you how disappointed I was the first time I ever saw David Spade?
No, let's hear that story.
Oh, it was just all attitude. There was no punchlines. He
No
was just
jokes.
like, yeah, I'm on TV. He had a seashell necklace. I just, it was just terrible.
It
No,
is
I'm kidding.
terrible, but-
Actually, the first time I saw Dana,
Oh.
he was on a payphone outside of this. How long ago? Payphone outside the Improv on Melrose, and he had a hat on, because he was on SNL at the time, or maybe he was. I think he was doing the
Maybe
movies.
just
at that
shoot
point.
me or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember thinking like, holy shit, that's fucking David Spade.
Yeah.
The big moment. Then I got to know him. I was like, oh.
This fucking idiot.
He has
Yeah.
been
David
part of the
Spade.
comedy landscape, David has, for 40 years. It's unbelievable.
Let's not round it up, you fuck.
For
Jesus.
62
34,
years.
like late 80s was that Young Comedians special with Dennis
Yeah.
Miller.
Did you see that?
I loved it.
Oh,
you,
that's great.
Schneider,
Mhm.
Jan Karam,
Mm-hmm.
Drake Sather,
Drake was
Mhm.
great. Yeah. Fred
Oh, yeah.
Stoller.
Fred Stoller. All you
Oh.
bastards.
Warren,
I'll take you all down
Warren
with me.
Thomas. yeah. Freddie
Was
Stoller.
it
had
Warren
some great-
Hutchinson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Passed away soon after. I will tell you that special. What I remember is I wasn't supposed to be on it.
No
I-
more. No more.
Oh yeah,
What?
that's
What?
you too, bit. Oh yeah,
Yeah?
no.
I remember all
I
that
don't,
shit.
I don't know what you're saying, dude. I don't even know which one you guys are singing. I'm supposed to read your lips.
Yeah.
Those were I stumbled into some good jokes starting out because I didn't have a lot to compare it to when I was in Arizona, and so I couldn't really copy everyone because I didn't even know what was going on. When I first went on, this sounds crazy, but it was just a comedy club, and I decided to be fun to go do comedy. And I was telling the guy before me some stuff from a Billy Crystal album I was going to do, and he goes, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, they want you to just make up your own stuff." I go, "Oh, well, that's fucking. Who does that? Like, that's way harder." I just thought I was such a performer. I go, I could do this because I memorized it. It was so dumb, but I didn't know anything. I was 19, and then so I did Billy Crystal's act for the first 4 years. And then, no, I didn't. But I did get stopped, luckily, because I would have done, it wouldn't have killed me because it's like a dumb club, but I didn't know anything. So then you get older and you try to do better, but I don't even know where this is heading. I have no idea.
I think you're more experimental, and then you kind of learn how to do it, and you get more, sounding like a comedian. Then you try to get away from that.
That's special. Did you ever audition for those? Because they had them for a while on HBO, and that was sort of the only game in town in LA. We would do it, and then every year it would come around, and you try to get, if you had an agent or a showcase at the Improv, to get your young comedian special, and then they said next year will probably be your year. I did it 3 times, didn't get on. And that one, they picked 5 and they said, shit, you were 6, sorry. And I was like, oh my God. And luckily my management was somehow producing that year only. And then Dennis Miller was the host, and they both said, squeeze one more asshole in there. Who cares?
And Dennis Miller championed David.
Yeah, Dennis helped me get on that. And then we did it. And then Warren, I remember, I thought it was so ballsy because he was a crowd work guy, and he was doing crowd work on the special. And they couldn't use all of it because it's like, this guy, where'd you eat tonight? Some nights that's really hit or miss. Some night it kills. And that night it wasn't killing. And in my head, I was just going over my 6 minutes every night going, how would you do just the gamble of getting on this thing and doing crowd work? He did pretty good, but overall it came on, and Rob and I got SNL off of that for sure.
I've always hated crowd work, forced crowd work. Like if you go up there and something happens and you interact, that's cool. But to just go up there and do that, like I just feel like the crowd always, like, no matter what you say to them, they like lose their mind. Like, oh my God, how did he just come off the top of his head to tell me to go fuck myself?
That's right.
I always just thought it was, I felt that way. And then I also thought like doing jokes about sex, unless you had a really specific story. Because, because I did both of those things. I played with the crowd, and I also had like sex stories. And it was just like, I remember being on stage, like as the crowd was laughing, it's like, it's not that funny.
Yeah, you even telling the crowd it's not that funny.
Like, settle down. It's like everybody laughs at a dick joke. So, and then I also noticed, when I was on the road, a lot of the road dogs, like when you were wondering when they were going to wrap up their set, was when they started talking about sex. It's like, all right, he's working towards his closer. And once they started talking about sex, they never went anywhere else because nothing could follow it. Yeah.
Have you ever seen a guy at the store, or you're at the Improv and they do, to the audience at home, when you get the light as a comic, let's say you're doing 20 minutes, they give you the light at 17 or 18 minutes, meaning if you don't know where you are, you've only got 3 minutes left. So you see comics do that, and then they do another chunk, then another chunk, and you're waiting to go on. And then they have the balls to go, so what else is going on? You have to be off 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. What else is going on is the fucking light came on. Yeah.
Or do it at the beginning and don't milk it. You're supposed to walk off. You're trying to stay on now. Oh,
Bill, in your early days and stuff, did you have auditions either for a manager, an agent, TV show, or stand up where it didn't go so well?
Oh yeah.
All right, can we hear one of those? Because you're so confident on stage in these last 10 years.
The first 15 years of my career. I remember I finally killed on one of them, one of those awful showcases, and the lady was, and some big woman agent, my manager at the time, asked, what you think? She's like, he's funny, but he has a weird look. And I knew what that meant. It meant he's a redhead. He's a ginger. It was like a rule. Like, it's like,
wow.
He's like the friend. What am I going to do with this? He's not getting the girl. He doesn't get the gun. It was like, all right, well, if we need another Ralph Malph, I guess I found the guy. So there was a lot of that. There was,
Ralph.
I don't remember. It was so long ago, but Jesus Christ. I mean, I was a terrible actor, and I would go in, I would make these big, dumb choices, and I would bring props in, and all, like just desperation.
I did props.
What turned it? When did you get your style and start to kick ass? I mean, how many years in did you become Bill Burr? Like 15 years?
Yeah, 17. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
17-year overnight success.
No, I think I did that half hour for HBO, and that got me a little momentum. And then, I just had to keep doing specials. With each special, I got a little more credibility, and it was, I kind of had to go the long way around, but I was happy. Like, I didn't really start making good money until my 40s, but like, I feel like that's a better route to take than to be like David Spade and be like, like the Leif Garrett of comedy.
Right.
21, he was in a movie.
Yeah.
21.
Being on the cover of Dynamite magazine. Remember that?
If I wish. Yeah. I wanted to be on the
somebody
cover of anything.
Did somebody just knock? Oh,
get the fuck out.
Cappuccino, yes.
It's fucking here. What's with cappuccino?
You know what?
Can you just drink coffee?
Deal with cappuccino. Thank you so much.
You gotta have a fucking foam on your coffee. What the fuck is that
just drink
about?
coffee.
What is this guy? Got a little sugar in his tank?
Jesus! Now we're gonna get full Bill Burr now with the caffeine.
You know what's funny? Now that people now realize that being homophobic is a stupid thing to do. Like, I don't think they'll ever understand just the littlest of behavior that would just get you gay bashed, even as a straight person. Anything if you picked up a coffee cup, if your pinky was out a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Whoa.
The size of what David was just drinking out of. Forget about it. Over.
They would even make fun that I'm putting lipstick on.
Oh yeah, you couldn't possibly do
That's
that. I just like how you're doing that with while having the audacity to have a nice Burt Reynolds mustache.
I got a cool beard. God, it's great. It's so sickening.
I like it.
It's see-through, dude. I don't know what to do.
It's very Dwayne Allman, or Greg Allman, I'd say.
I know. I get compared to people that are horrendous, and that's it's fine. But I like Skinner.
No, I ain't no angel.
Listen, I'm going to give Bill not a compliment. I'm going to ask him a question.
Okay.
When you were on, sick of complimenting
we can give him a compliment.
No, he's done.
Yeah, but maybe not.
It's gone
yet.
too far.
Yeah.
When you go to SNL, because again, you skipped our brutal like crybaby shit about how we were there and we were ignored by Lauren, but you just went as a host, so you're the jolly good fellow. Do you? Because you're a great writer, do you write sketches or do you just say, do you start the week and go, I'll do my own monologue, I'll worry about that, but you guys write me sketches? Or do you say, I want to help write a sketch or anything like that?
Well, I've only done the show once, so I came in there and whatever they wanted to do, I was cool with. And fortunately, they had really funny ideas, and I loved the ones that they picked. And it was just like, writing stand-up comedy and then writing sketch are two completely different things. I learned that the hard way.
I found that out too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's two completely different things. So I just was, I got some good advice from people. Like, they would come in, all you got to do, you know what? Oh, Chris Rock hosted the week before, and I was in town early enough that I got to watch him do his show. And he told me afterwards, he goes, it's just go out and kill the monologue. That's what you have to do. Kill the monologue, and then you're going to be working with these sketch actors, and they're gonna as long as you're Pete Davidson helped me out too. As long as you're cool, as long as you're a cool guy, everyone's going to help you out. If you're being a dick, then that's the treatment you're going to get. So I pretended I was nice, David.
Yeah, that's
did.
Tough for 6 days or however long it was. You had to bluff them. But yeah, you're right. When everybody's good there, and everybody, you realize later, wants you to do good. It makes them do good, look good. So you put your trust in. Some comics would come in and say, like even Dice, but I understand back then they go, I got my own writers, and I know what you guys are going to try to make me do, but we want to do funny stuff. And already it's like antagonistic. And
I was going to say that's a fun way to enter.
Yeah, that doesn't go well because I got hired as a writer mostly, and you're hiring a guy because I've got a decent stand-up act, basically 25 minutes, but I'm supposed to write sketches, which is a whole 180. I mean, I did think I had some funny bones to me, but it took so long to figure out how to write a sketch. It's just a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And then I like the one. I was just thinking, I saw one where you were a sports guy and the Bears beat to explain it at home. 2 sports guys. Conan is one. African American female is the host. You're the guy saying, hey, my team beat the shit out of your team. And then what happened was an African American kid was shot the night before, and no one saw the game except you because you're white and you didn't see. And I'm thinking, well, I guess Taylor Swift isn't doing this sketch, but I was thinking this is the one Bill would say, "Give me that one," or they would write for you and say, "Someone will come along and do this." And it's interesting that they give you stuff like that because it probably is more exciting to do.
Well, what's
something.
funny is the people that are gonna get offended by that are actually white people who get offended for black people. It's just like you're not, and I don't. I feel like the white people that are like that, it's because they have such little interaction, with anybody else, so they don't understand like where or what is funny or what. As long as you're not being malicious,
sure.
And then the fact that there's two black people in the sketch, you got to think that what you're doing, they're cool with.
Like they've never heard the sketch until you're doing it. They're like, wait, what are we doing?
But they'll come out, oh my God, my heart breaks for Conan in this sketch. And they'll have their BLM sign in their window, which is my favorite, like laziest white I'm helping you out thing ever.
I got you.
You write BLM on a piece of copier paper and you put it in your window and you're like, and back to my life.
And that's fixed.
Yes, I've done my part. I am a warrior. I'm an ally.
Yeah, because some of those sketches, I mean, obviously it's great. You know, everyone there, you got good writing. And sketches are good writing. And when you do a good writing, you'd hope it's harder to be offended. And especially everyone's in on it. And your stand-up, I do stand-up and every comic's like, or people ask me, oh, we think you're going to get canceled. You were talking about this, or in your special, you talked about pedophiles and this and that. And I go, it's all where it's coming from. If you are angry at another race and yelling and screaming, that is racism. If you're doing jokes or about this or that, everything's coming from a funny place, or I think this is funny. There's no hate here. Whatever I'm doing about any subject, I'm coming to make you laugh. It's so weird when they get so mad about it. I kind of hear what you're saying.
It's not a lot of people. It's just
2%.
It's just that this business acted like 2% was 98%.
Yeah,
because they listen to their corporate lawyers. Because I have empathy for people that are in the industry, because if we do stuff and it flops, we got our stand up, we got a podcast, whatever. I just was talking to somebody about this. If they do something and it flops, then they lose their job, and they're like, I don't have health insurance. I got this nut I got to pay, and my kid's in school and shit. So they have to be way more conservative. And I think it's a lot easier for us to be like, hey man, why don't you fucking let me create here, but let me put your career in the balance.
And the trajectory was someone's offensive or starts to get canceled. For me, I just wait and I go, okay, what are the corporations going to do? You have the mob on Twitter, but okay, that's the corporate dropping. Then it's the agency drops them. Yeah. And that's how it goes. And then you are sort of on the outs for a while. But it's really up to the agency manager and the corporations. And they don't need the headache at a certain point. They don't want to be,
Well, you don't get canceled as much. Like, it's like you can't go book a gig. You get sort of sent back in time in your career.
Yeah. You have to go back in line and have a time before you can get back. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've just sort of acted like none of that was happening. Has been my formula on how to get through this perceived difficult time. It's just, there was a lot of bad shit happening that needed to be addressed. And like most of the time, when the cork flies off the bottle, there's an overcorrection or whatever. And I think it's starting to go back a little bit. And
we'll see.
I don't buy into like certain people like that, that they should never work again. It's like, all right, if you do some Weinstein shit, I understand that. But other stuff, it's just like there's people get paroled out of jail every day and are allowed to put their fucking lives back together. So,
especially when there's no court case, there's no due process, there's no hearing, that you can't cancel someone.
You're part of the problem, Dana.
Yeah, I know. I judge everyone that I see, and they should be canceled. I mean, I don't
even think that it doesn't. I think they've ran out of people.
I think when you're one person on Twitter in the middle of the country, and it's sort of a power move. You go, I could say this, and let's see if I can get some shit started about somebody, because I personally didn't like this, and I'm going to make hit a point. I'm going to write every company, and I'm going to write in because that
I know,
stuff
but
does get noticed.
99% of the time, every day, it's not happening. I think it in the beginning, it happened a lot, and then they kind of, got rid of the people that had like the button under their desk that locked the door. All of those fucking lunatics. I mean,
Yeah.
You get rid of
all of those.
get the big fish out, and then now it's sort of like, okay, you have to sort of really screw up.
I used to do a bit about where did all the canceled people go? Are they on an island? And I called it Predator Island. And Arnold was the host. Welcome to Predator Island, where we hunt there's Harvey Weinstein over there, and we go to Racist Lagoon. There's Roseanne Barr and Woody Allen. What are you doing here? Run for the brambles or lay down ground fire. So it was a long thing, but I started to run out of people. You're right.
What they also should do is they should do it almost like Survivor. And you can win a challenge to get back into mainstream Hollywood.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It's Charlie Rose and Tom Brokaw have formed a team.
It's an alliance.
Anything with Arnold's accent is allowed.
Dog the bounty hunter.
Here comes Dog. He's in Racist Lagoon.
Racist Lagoon. And Jesse Smollett on there, too. I mean, you just put everyone in there.
But you know what I love about that joke is the word lagoon, because I know you picked that word because it's just funny to hear
word.
Arnold say it.
Lagoon. Racist Lagoon. Racist Lagoon. That's right. Yes.
I like that.
And Hulk's Mountain. Jesse Smollett. On
Hoax Mountain.
So it was just, it's like Disneyland, except
Escape from Hoax Mountain.
Yes.
Dude, that case was so bizarre that was one of the ones I never did a joke about it because I felt like to be already on TV, already making that money, already getting that level of attention, and then you had like this victim fantasy that you paid people, acted up like there was like. It's like this guy's like mentally ill, like that you're going to be like he's a TV star. He thinks he's going to do that. I mean, that's like when you watch those first 48s and somebody's never committed a crime in their life, and then they try to get away with murder, and they go like to the local pub and they're like,
why?
"Hey, who wants to kill my wife?"
Yeah.
Like, within 2 seconds they're talking to an undercover cop.
Yeah.
They're always
in a fucking
caught.
Chevy Cavalier, and they're just arrested and their whole life is over.
You know what I'm learning, Bill? I'm learning that on Craigslist, there's no real hitmen anymore. It's all undercover cops. Every time I look for a real hitman, it's just an undercover guy. And I'm like, is there any real ones left?
I have a friend of mine that is a district attorney, and he was telling me how funny it was. He goes, the amount of times in my law career, someone would come in and say, somebody broke into my house, or the cops would come with the case. That's right. They would talk to the cops. And then before he was prosecuting, they would come in and they would talk to the cops, say, I think my neighbors took my stuff. And they would be like, all right, what's his name? And they would say his name, and then they would type it into Facebook. And the guy, the idiot, would be on Facebook with all the stolen shit behind him and like cash, totally convict himself.
Yeah.
And I said, like, what percentage of people would do that? He said like 15. like that was such a ridiculously high number.
Too high, yeah.
That dude, it's your neighbor. He knows your name, and you're going to put his stolen TV behind you.
Bill, do you ever play this game with your wife? Like, if you say to your wife, if you were going to kill me, what would you do? And if I was going to kill you, this was what I do. Because I told my wife this is how I would do it. Well, see, I want to hear what you. But mine was that we would go for a hike, and there would be a steep cliff, and I'd just be like, boom, just push her really fast, and then that's it. And
now,
then,
would you say boom when you pushed her? Is that part of it too?
That was me as a stand-up trying to kill in the room here. Boom. But we did. It's just a little inside joke. You probably. I'm seeing you as more just a fantasy. If you had to kill someone, say you wanted to get rid of Spade because he stole some of your bits. Yeah. Slow poisoning is my prediction for you.
Well, I learned talking to a cop one time. Because we tried, I was doing a podcast, and me and the co-host, we tried to come up with the perfect murder. And we had an ex-cop on there, and he goes, okay, let's hear yours. I go, all right.
I love it. He's going to troubleshoot it.
So nice. I go, all right. I go, okay, so me and a buddy of mine get in the car, and he goes, that's it. He goes, you're caught. And I go, what? He goes, you can't involve somebody else. The second you involve somebody else, somebody's going to get nervous. Somebody's going to go to the cops. Somebody's going to talk to try to plea that thing down. I didn't even get out of the gate. So, I don't know. I don't think you know what it is. I will tell you this. This is something I don't think I've ever talked about. Is like, I think vengeance is one of the darkest emotions that human beings have.
Oh yeah.
And I just it scares me. I think about it sometimes, like, somebody ripped me off this fucking year and I thought about doing shit, and it's just like, it's just at the end of the day, it's just bad. I don't know. So if I was going to kill David Spade, there's something so puppyish about David Spade that like, I think I would put him in like a bag, like kittens,
and then hit me with a rock.
With rocks in it.
Oh.
And I would just throw him over and listen to meow, meow as he went over the bridge.
I didn't mean this literally, but the perfect murder is a good subject. Did the cop ever really say what he's in?
Yeah, give me a good one.
He told me how to get away.
A gun made of ice cubes or what? What did he say?
A gun made of ice cubes. I think he should have told the cop that one.
Would melt, the weapon would melt.
It's kind of irresponsible. You guys want it? Because I can tell you, he told us how to do it.
Oh, it's irresponsible because people will hear it and act on it?
No one hears this.
I don't know. Well, he said basically, if you have no priors, all right, if you have no prior convictions and you kill somebody, just that you're completely. Are you writing this down?
Oh yeah.
Do you say you're insane?
If you kill somebody you have no connection to whatsoever, and nobody sees you do it,
hard to get caught.
I mean, what is there? There's nothing.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
But it's the forensic stuff, though, right? The evidence, the hairs and the blood and the.
No, it's so many times you're filmed, Bill. Like I see these shows sometimes, and everyone's filmed everywhere. They're walking out and they're doing
That's true.
This.
There was a guy. There was a guy in the fucking valley. There's a that music venue, the Baked Potato.
Yeah.
Famous place where all these like arena level like crazy jazz and studio musicians jam at, and right next to it, a few blocks up, is a recording studio for music. And this guy thought that they ripped him off. So he went down there on a Sunday and he lit the place on fire, not knowing there was people in there, and people died from the smoke because they were in the soundproof room. They had the whole crime on film. He pulled up to the mobile station, took out the gas can, filled it up.
Wow.
Yeah. Everything.
Then they had the city cameras of him walking across the street with the gas can. And then every business up the block had him going by.
Yep.
And it was
that's just like Keystone Cops.
That's the problem. It's so much harder.
The fact that he killed people, like that's the thing. Like that's that thing once you become like a parent. Like it stops just being like a cartoon. It's like that was somebody's brother, that was somebody's sister or parent. It was just tragic. Some dumb shit and they didn't even do it. But like that fucking idiot. And it was just like the level with which that they didn't think that out. They just were like, oh, it's closed on Sundays. I'm just going to do to not even think.
There's some.
Well, I'm going to go on record and say I'm anti-murder.
No, we're against.
But I am fascinated by the subject of crime and also all the cameras.
Bill, wait, let me ask Bill. Why are so many? I don't want to say women, but there's a lot of people that watch just these crime shows and they're so into it. And it's the biggest podcast genre.
Biggest podcast by
it's
far.
Like, the Decapitation Diaries is beating you this week. I'm like, what? That's a whole podcast?
My wife says that she watches them because she tries to think like what she would do in that situation, which I kind of go with, but like, I just can't like, I don't know. I don't like going to bed watching shit like that. But like, I remember I used to do this bit when that Michael Jackson documentary came out and this guy was going, do you see that Michael Jackson documentary? And I was like, no. And he's like, you got to see it. And it's just like, I really don't want to have my entertainment for the evening to be alleged pedophilia testimony. Like I'm sitting here eating popcorn.
Testimony.
And then did he touch your little ding-a-ling? And I'm sitting there with like, eating a Hot Pocket. And like you getting molested as a child is my entertainment. Like what can I watch tonight? I could watch Yellowstone, Breaking Bad, or you talking about getting molested as a child.
Describe Mr. Jackson's penis.
Which, by the way, I got to get I got to get into Yellowstone because everybody is telling me it's fucking amazing, and I love Kevin Costner, so I got to get into that.
Costner's great. It's
Costner.
pretty simple, but it's kind of what I call brain candy. You're out. The scenery's amazing. It's cowboys fighting each other. It's just like so easy to watch. I mean, I do sports a lot, especially now NBA is on every night. What's your brain candy? It'd be sports, right? To just what you're going to watch to calm yourself down from your daily noise in your brain?
I like watching sports, and I like music. And I have my garage, I soundproofed it, and I bought this beautiful set of Gretsch Broadcaster drums. And I just go down there and...
Oh, you play?
I just fucking wail on them.
Hi, everybody. This is Dana. By the way, right now... we're going to go on a long tangent, probably 20 minutes, Bill and I and David, about his love of drumming. And he's so excited and so happy. Mm-hmm. And I loved it, but it's a little bit technical. But I hope you enjoy it, or you can click off. Goodbye. Do you jam to music or just by yourself? Or does it have a drum track or music you play along with?
If I'm having a good day, like I sit down and there's actually ideas for the first time ever. I've been playing like on and off for 30 years, and all I did, my first like 27 years of playing, all I would do was listen to a drum track and then learn how to play it. And it's someday I just finally woke up and I was thinking, like, if I did this same approach to stand-up comedy, I'd be a joke thief. Like I'm not playing drums, I'm doing drums.
Right.
And along the way, I met this great drum teacher, Dave Elich.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I have time, I go play drums with him, and we do this thing just trading fours. And it's really embarrassing at first, and really exposes you when you actually have to come up with like your own ideas and you feel stupid. It was like a lot of almost took me back to the beginning to learning comedy. And one of my favorite memories ever of playing drums was in the Netflix comedy festival. I was fortunate enough, I got to do a show at the Forum. And before the Forum, I did a drum lesson with my teacher in the empty Forum, in the round.
Wow.
With I played a Vista Light, and he had the Bonham, the steel kit that he had, the last kit he had before he unfortunately passed away. And we just jammed in the middle, trading fours. And what I loved about it was Dave has gone on tour with all these big people. So he's played drums at the Cowboy Stadium and everything. But just to do that and just have fun, dude, he had the biggest grin on his face. Like both of us were just sitting there cheesing in the middle of it. And in a lot of ways, it was more fun than the show. Because the show, it's like I'm at work, I'm doing a job, and there's this pressure of like people have spent money. They got a sitter. I have to deliver. Where that was like total freedom of like, make an ass of yourself, fall on your face, and all of that stuff. So,
is that like a heavy metal set you've got? I mean, a lot of cymbals, a lot of toms.
No. I've always been into like Steve Jordan. I always just loved all the music that he could get out of like a little like 4-piece kit, 5-piece kit. And when I at first when I would listen to all the metal and all of that shit, I was into, wanting a double bass kit and having all these drums and all of these. Bonham played a small kit. Like I just wanted to play like one of those big, giant
massive.
Kits. Yeah. So Spinal Tap kit. Right. And then Guns N' Roses came out, and Steven Adler came up and had a 4-piece kit. And if you really go back and listen to Appetite for Destruction, and just the amount of music, and like it's very rare that there's a drummer that if you took out all the other instruments and you just played the drum track, that a non-musician would know what song it was.
Yeah.
Because it's a weird thing where like a guitarist has to play a different riff every time. But you can be a drummer and kind of play the same beat as long as you keep in time. But the creativity that he had with that little kit, he actually influenced everybody. If you watch, once he came out and Guns N' Roses hit, all of those guys stripped down their kits. Even the guys with the double bass, double basses, they went to like the double pedal, except for the thrash guys.
Right.
Now the thrash guys, like that's like, you know, they're like, I always looked at them like
You're talking about like Pantera and Slayer, that kind of shit.
Yeah, they're like the outlaw bikers, where it's like you got to ride a fucking Road King. So they got the big ass, you know, the 24-inch kits, 3 up, 2 down, or 4 up or whatever. But yeah, you have the big 4 of them, and then like Vinnie Paul, rest his soul, man. Like that guy, like just the groove that he played, because I felt like, I think once you got like double bass and all that stuff, like it's really hard not to overplay. Yeah. I felt like a lot of guys, you know, and it's like you're supposed to be saying something. You're not supposed to be talking to me like an auctioneer, going like a zillion miles an hour.
Less choices. Let me ask you a question about, you know, Metallica. Like, so they're in their mid-50s and they have all that heavy metal. And you watch Lars and stuff, and they're doing it. But at some point, there's a fitness aspect to that, to be able to do that for like an hour.
They wail
like,
on them.
In your mid-50s, it just seems like it's an athletic thing. They must do a lot to keep their calves in shape, you know, for the drumming.
No, if your technique,
you do it without trying that hard, in a way, right? You're so
well. If you watch like Buddy Rich, Joe,
I watched
Morello,
him last night. I watch his solos all the time.
Yeah,
Dana plays,
and I know he plays. He's a great drummer. Joe Morello, these guys, the way they play, Dave Brubeck, because I'm going back to the classic guys.
It's so light.
But their technique was flawless. So their sticks are going 1,000,000 miles an hour, but their forearms, nothing's tight. Yeah. Everything's loose. Steven Adler plays loose. Like if you play like loose and you understand breathing and all of that, Dave Elitch has this, should be his agent, man. He's got this whole great thing on about, like, when I started playing drums with him, it was nothing about drumming. It was all about how I was sitting, the way I was breathing, if I was holding tension in my jaw or anything. Like, he's like, all of that affects what you're playing. So like those guys that play super, super fast, those, like some of those guys, like the guy, Tomas Haki, I think is how you say his name. The guy from Meshuggah. They got a song called Bleed that's sort of like, I think for this century is sort of like the sort of, like, I would think like back in the day, remember there was always a guy like who played guitar, was like, dude, there's a guy 2 towns over that can play Eruption. You know what I mean? This is like
2 towns over.
There's always this guy that, you know, nobody could produce. Dude, he sounds just like him. He has a thing, this song called Bleed, and it's just one, it's a polyrhythmic thing. Danny, you got to listen to it. Like,
what's his name? I'll YouTube it tonight.
So Meshuggah, and it's called Bleed. And if you ever get a fucking chance to see that band live, like the level of musicianship that is going on is like, I don't even know. And it still grooves though, because it's not one of those difficult for difficult sake. There's a purpose behind what they're doing. So it's like, it's rooted in the ground. And even the first time you see them, like you know that they're special. And even though because my ears took me years to catch up to what they were doing, just as far as like what I was listening to. And I think they recently just came around, but I got tinnitus in this ear and it was really acting up, and I just couldn't go see anything loud. I had to kind of like lay off it for a minute.
Well, I love hearing you talk about this. It's so cool.
I know. He gets excited. I'm jealous.
Because we know you as a comedian, but your passion around this is like, you know, it's like, whoa.
It's fun to have something else you're into.
I love it too. I did some jamming in high school in my 20s and 30s with a little band and stuff. It's so much fun. Much better than comedy. It's just
It is. You know what I like about it? I like I always wish I had that experience of like a band having to win over a crowd. Like I've done that as a comedian, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel strong, but it's a solitary thing.
Yeah.
Like I would just think if you got up there and the crowd was like booing you or whatever, and the guitarist just gave you a look, almost like a quarterback just kind of gives a wide receiver a look, and the guy knows that whatever I said in the huddle, fuck that, just take off. I'm going to throw you one. Like to have a guitarist look at you like that, and you know that you guys are locked in, like fuck these guys, and you win them over. like that sort of like, almost like a band of brothers, like a military thing. I just think like that experience. I remember seeing that like one of AC/DC's drummers. It wasn't Phil Rudd. I think it was Simon Wright. They were asking, what's it like playing those songs every night? He goes, sometimes you get tired, but he goes, Angus just gives you a look.
Yeah,
and it's just like, all right, man, Angus gave me the look. Like, I'm not going to like, I get like, can't explain it, man. When I read stories like that, I think it might be the sports background. I get like amped up. Like I want to have a good show or something like that.
I was in New York doing a benefit, long story, but I ended up playing with, it was Lou Reed, and it was Take a Walk on the Wild Side. And it was an all-comedy band, but I was the drummer. And I didn't have a monitor, and I was just trying to get the groove. I didn't have a monitor. And then after the rehearsal, Lou Reed looks at me. He was kind of an intimidating guy. He goes, don't do that. Whatever you're doing, don't do that. I go, whoa. Lou, I can't hear myself. But they did get a little monitor for me. And I wrote, it's not a hard beat, but if you can't hear it, you want to be right.
What did he think you were doing? Trying to throw it? Or
I just don't. I think I was slightly off time because I couldn't hear. You need to.
That's the worst. Yeah. Then what I do is I just look at whoever's out in front of me. I just look where they're tapping their foot. Yeah, dude, it's like you're underwater. You can't even hear what they're doing, and then you're just kind of like. Once I lock into like, I'm just usually the bass player is who I'll end up looking at. And hopefully they're out front enough where I can see their leg. And hopefully somebody turns around. You're like, dude, I can't hear you guys.
Wow, you can't hear from behind it.
Ringo said he would just watch Paul McCartney's ass because Paul would kind of wiggle it, he said, and that was his way of keeping time.
Yeah, for his head.
He couldn't hear anything. They had no monitors then. Anyway, wow. Shit. That's so cool. I love that. Hey, let's do this thing where we say we're going to get together and have dinner.
Yeah.
And then it won't happen. No.
Why don't we get together and jam? You play like every instrument, don't you, Dana?
Very rudimentarily. I mean, I don't have a drum set down here. It's up in the garage in Marin County. So I drum on my laptop all the time. And I play acoustic guitar and I'm drumming with my right hand, basically. So I have a keyboard. I'm very rudimentary, but I do love it. So
I have a good, a fun triplet workout to do that. It helps your bass drum speed and also helps you to kind of go around the kit and get more comfortable with that.
Well, you kept going. I mean, you seem like you're great, but you could probably use just a good blues bass player just to kind of, just someone to play with you,
No, listen, I'm good for a father of two. That's about as good as I am.
But Dad's playing the drums in the garage is pretty hip for a kid.
But you like Zeppelin, you like ACD. I saw ACDC at your precious Foxborough. It's great.
Rammstein's very entertaining. The German heavy metal band.
I haven't seen them. I like.
Oh, Dana.
I always forget his name, but the drummer, James Gadsden, is that his name? Who's the guy? The drummer for Bill Withers is another guy that I love.
Withers, wow.
That swing.
Yeah, I feel like I have it goes like, and then, I've been going to the gym and if this one guy is at the front desk, because whoever's at the front desk controls the music. Mm-hmm. He's been playing a lot of like Cardi B and hip hop and stuff, and like the drum tracks are so much fun to like. I just listened to him like I wish I had that on a loop, and I could just play fills over it and just sort of do those on like a loop or something like that. I basically do comedy so I can afford to buy drums.
Yeah,
wow, that's fun. A huge statement.
It's so fun to have something to like look forward to and think, and then you get money. And when you meet bands, you love maybe to talk to their drummer or maybe just talk to the band, and then you also they might know you now, which isn't.
Has a killer fucking drummer, and I'm gonna space on his name because I'm old. Is a band Russian Circles has an absolute beast of a drummer, and he somebody sent me a clip of him, and it was what I loved was his use of dynamics, which I feel like in all facets of life with how loud you have to be to get attention now.
Yep.
I just feel like dynamics is like a lost art, and it was another thing where he had this little kit, and the amount of music he was getting out of this thing was insane. John Theodore's another guy that I love all the way back with Mars Volta right through
Yeah.
All the stuff that he's doing
well, in
now
the end of the
with
day, I
Queen's.
tell people it's kind of the kick drum, the snare, and the hi-hat. I mean, there's a lot more to it. But if you can master that and all the machinations of that, Cozy Powell was a big one from the 70s, and he was Mr. Hi-hat, doing all this hi-hat work.
I gotta give where the fuck is my phone? There's these kids that I listen to on the Instagram there. I don't have my damn phone. Where the hell is it? Oh well. Oh, I'm on my phone. Idiot.
No, you're
old dad right here. Yeah,
too many inputs.
Yeah, there's these guys that I listen to.
So Ringo or Charlie Watts? That would be a question for me, and Bobby Slayton would hash that one out.
Oh, for me, it's not a question. I go Ringo.
Okay.
Me
too.
Ringo or Bonham?
Two different animals.
Two different worlds, the best in one world and the best in the other world.
Yeah, that's like zebra or mongoose.
Mongoose.
I mean, that's just.
I think Ringo, because we had Paul on our podcast, and we talked about just car stereos and remastering some of the Beatles stuff. So you really heard the bass, and you heard Ringo's kick drum, and you heard how they syncopated together, and it's really fun. And that was not around in the '60s on a transistor radio, and the way they had to mix them in mono, they couldn't have that heavy bottom in there. So he became.
I think Bonham is one of the more misunderstood drummers out there.
How is he misunderstood? Because he's kind of number one with most people,
Because when people because his sound was so big, your eyes lie to you when you watch him. When you watch him play, it's so big. Your brain tells you he's doing this, and he isn't. He's all like wrists and fingers. He just knew how to hit a drum and get out of the way, and then on top of that, had this gift for dynamics and sound and all of that stuff. But like,
well, that was
like
Led Zeppelin.
when I was growing up, like the all the drummers are saying like, yeah, dude, Bonham used his stick was like tree trunks. They were like two bees, and it's just like basically, like I don't know, like those giant ones, right?
They thought it was just strength, yeah.
Yeah, and then you watched it, and now I'm looking at it going, I think he plays with like a 5A, which is like a number 2 pencil.
A light little stick. Well, the value of his drum, who set up those drums? Because his kick drum and snare, that relationship is like nothing I've ever heard anyone get. And it's so potent. And you're right. I think there's a lot of muscularity just built into that you don't have
There's
to
that
pound
Tree guy. He does a whole thing on how he used to tune up his drums. But Bonham had a big part in that. Like he wasn't just one of those, hey, tune up my drums and I'll sit down and play them.
Yeah.
Like he had that 26-inch kick, and he had nothing in it, and there was just like a piece of felt either on the batter side or the resonant side.
Yeah.
And he just knew how to hit it and push all that air. But that was another thing too, was everybody thought you had to get all these big drums to sound big, but like they didn't know how to mic drums when he came up. And the amps just kept getting bigger and bigger. So the drums got bigger. So you could be heard. And then, by the end of it, you I kind of, what's funny is I actually bought the green sparkle John Bonham drum kit at one point. I actually owned one of those with the big 26-inch kit. And it was really difficult for me to play. Like going from the rack to the floor tom, it was like skipping a subway stop. Yeah, and then that finally dawned on me. I was just like, this kit worked for him. I'm not him. So I sold the whole thing, and that's when I got the Gretsch Broadcaster. I got a little 22-inch kit, and I
like them low. I like low drums close to each other and tilted in a way that it's all right there, rather than reaching all the time. That's a whole other skill set when you're out there all the time.
But Bill, when you see guys, like a lot of guys put their hair into it, so you don't know how hard they're hitting, like Grohl or Taylor Hawkins, it was like, wham. And it looks so hard, but you don't know. Is it more head movement or is it more really wailing on
Dave
the drums?
Grohl, I'll tell you, underrated it is his work with Killing Joke. And there's a song called The Death and Resurrection Show, where he plays, and he's playing 16ths on the hi-hat, which
really fast.
It's two hands, but like I had a buddy of mine, better ears than mine. He goes, no, dude, that's one hand. I'm like, what the fuck? And it is just the perfect sickest beat. And I'm killing myself that I never, when he was playing with, he took a break from Foo Fighters and he went on tour with Queens of the Stone Age. There's a great, they just, of course, they never run the fucking drummer when he's playing. Even when he's playing a goddamn solo, they're still fucking going out to the crowd. So they have a song called "The Song for the Deaf," and Grohl plays like this, just perfect solo in the beginning of it, and it's just that, you know, there's space, there's power. It's just like if you watch that solo and you don't want to learn how to play drums, you're not alive. Hey. So. There's this great clip of him playing that. And I got to see him play when they were in, I saw him at the Wiltern when they were in Them Crooked Vultures, which was John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin, Dave Grohl, and Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. And then they had this hired gun to sort of do the Malcolm rhythm guitar when they went out on tour. And oh my God, that was one of the, I remember after their first song, my wife looked over at me and she was like, that guy's really good on drums. And I'm like, yeah, that guy's, I think that guy might have a future.
Yeah. He's just the stuff he did with Nirvana, just beginning there was so perfect, you know. He's musical.
Yeah. And I also thought when I was a fan of his, but when I really became a fan was when they did Unplugged and he had to bring that all down, but still drive the song. And he did it so effortlessly. When I watched it, I was just like, oh, wow, this guy is, so I got to be honest with you, as much as I like the Foo Fighters, I actually don't like them because it took one of my favorite drummers.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the Foo Fighters and I have like, you know, fucking 10 of their albums, but like, there's a part of me like going like, fuck, I wish this band was a little less successful so I could watch them play drums a little bit more.
Well,
nice.
Bill,
Wow.
let's let Bill go. He's been a fucking stud. Thank you, buddy.
So much fun. Really
All
fascinating.
right. Well, look at that. Who would have thought, huh? We went from comedy to like being old dads at Guitar Center.
I'll talk about music anytime. We have a lot of, I love it.
All right. Anyway. Well, let's do the obligatory. We're all going to get dinner.
Let's and then it'll be just me and Bill, but I will tell Dana after that we went.
And let's do the awkward sign off where it's a little kind of, and
we all lean in and look
it says
for how
leave
to,
and you see the other person still on and it's all awkward.
Or I hear you two guys start to talk and I'm like, did I just hang up on you?
Yeah.
Do that.
Let's do that.
Right.
Well, I miss you, Bill, and I like you more than Dana does. Anyway, I got to go. Okay, I'll talk to you.
All right, fellow drummer.
I felt I connected more with Dana. I'm sorry, Dave. It's over between you and me. Bye.
Hey, what's up, flies? What's up, fleas? What's up, people that listen? We want to hear from you and your dumb questions.
Questions, ask us anything. Anything you want.
You can email us at flyonthewall@cadence13.com.
Okay, so we have a question from Tina Palmer. Thank you for the question, Tina. Let's read it. I absolutely love your podcast. It's the only one I listen to on a regular basis. Thank you. It's so fun and always makes me smile.
I like when they put more compliments at the beginning.
Well, I want to.
It's a good way to get it picked, though.
I have to say that we don't see these ahead of time. This is our producer, Greg Holtzman, who picks them, but it does seem a little self-congratulatory. Hey, David, I just found a letter from one of our fans asking a question. I absolutely love your podcast. I don't know why I like this one. I only listen to it on, it's the only one I listen to on a regular basis. It's so fun and always makes me smile. Okay.
You know, we need a compliments hotline.
Yeah, because I'm down a lot.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so here's the question for you. SNL has had so many amazing commercial parodies over the years. Which ones were your favorites? My all-time favorite, Schmidt's Gay. Adam and Chris were hilarious. I remember that one.
I remember that one.
That was great.
That's there.
Couldn't do it today.
First of all, a quick story. Schmidt's Gay, I think I was in for about a couple days, and then they switched.
I was looking through some commercial parodies this morning. You were in a lot of them. Yeah.
I did. I think Smigel wrote Schmidt's Gay, and I think he switched it from me and Farley to Adam and Farley. And I was like, oh, because I knew it was so funny, and they put that Van Halen music in. That was such a funny commercial. There's so many good ones. Colon Blow.
Phil Hartman. I think Al Franken wrote that. Was just something that stood out
really,
in people's minds.
People talked about that for a while. The Bad Idea Jeans was one that I still hear about. I didn't write it.
You were in that one,
yeah, I was
right?
in that one.
Yeah, that was funny. I saw that. Mom Jeans.
Jeans are always funny. Mom Jeans, was it Tina Fey?
It was Tina,
That era,
Maya,
yeah.
Amy, Rachel, just mom jeans, sort of high-waisted and puffy, kind of like giving off the vibe of business is closed here.
Yeah, there's 3-legged jeans, leg and a leg, 3 at last. By the way, the songs they come up with are so funny. Mm-hmm. Everything about what about the car that looked crappy so you could, a luxury car you could drive into a bad neighborhood? 'Cause the outside looks shitty.
There's so
about
many.
the car you can fuck. Remember that one? And it's so beautiful. And God, I can't think of. There's so many.
There's Lovitz did one with Phil and others where it was a trap door in Neyland. Just a business guy who had a malfunctioning trap door. So sometimes you'd go in it and you had to climb out or it would launch you, Just
Well,
stuff like-
too, because I was, early on, you write a lot of commercial parodies because it's a good way to get on the show. It's sort of a backdoor. The 2 I wrote I liked there was Salon, the Vidal Sassoon shampoo.
Did that get made?
That got made. That was
Okay.
on
Give me that-
Hibernal.
What was the premise of
Salon Finish, Salon Shine. It was the guy in the commercial saying Salon. If you say it right, it makes your hair better. Salon.
Salon. Okay.
And then
Like
there was Hibernal. Yeah, it was like a NyQuil commercial with Farley where if you want to sleep through all of cold and flu season, you sleep for 4 months. And Farley wakes up, who won the Super Bowl? But he's got a beard now and nails. And he was mad because I was on the set and he's like, do I have to put all these fucking nails? I'm like, oh, relax. You're going to be here 8 hours anyway. So they put a wig on him. Julia Sweeney was in it.
Nice.
And then... Oh, Chia Head, I wrote. That was one of the first things I wrote.
Oh, yeah? I remember that one.
And that was one of the ones that turned into a real product about 10 years later. They made Chia Head. And I was like, exact same box, everything. But it was like you put President Obama and you put the seeds on and then...
And then Chia had...
Yeah. It looks
so they took that idea?
I mean, I don't know, I guess. But yeah, I think they used to do specials. They'd have a commercial parody special on primetime.
The driest one that Jim Downey wrote was called Change Bank.
Mm-hmm.
It's so droll and so dry. It's just them saying how they could... All they do is make change for you.
Yeah, one of these days we'll put clips up. I mean,
Yeah.
you can look them up, all these ones are saying, but
All on.
we got to get some clips in here because it's hysterical. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. And thank you for the compliments because we really
need
need them. We're hanging by a thread here. We don't know if we're going to get canceled.